All right, everybody, we are now back live on Sportswire Radio. We are now joined in on our flagship on sportnarium.com/player. We're also here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And I'm joined with three of my guys here from Sportswire Radio, including for the first time here in a hot skip in a minute. His name is Billy McInerney, formerly of Elite Sports. Rob Maraska here. He'll be with us for a contest for a little while. And of course, the Long Island Nets own the brute force Brad Weiss. Also, I guess there's such a thing still, the LI Brew Crew, plus the Plainview JFK Boys JV team and the SJ Long Island Golden Eagles, who we'll get into toward the end of the show. And guys, happy Friday, and how are you?
Doing good.
Doing good.
All right, a lot to get into here for sure. Rob Maraska, you're up first because I know you got a contest and you got something going on here. So fill us in here for those that are listening and watching your contest and what's it all about for this most recent one here. For those that are listening and watching on Sportsplay Radio and those that are going to be following this on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm giving away a Tops Now baseball card highlighting the Houston Astros no-hitter in the World Series. I had a lot of people go for this, and I have a winner. So I'm just going to announce the winner real fast, and then you can move on. The winner is Jake True. His Twitter handle is at JakeTrue415, and he's from San Francisco, California. So Top says the cards are on the way. So when I get them, I will send it out to Jake. So congratulations to Jake True from San Francisco.
And repeat his Twitter handle again for those that are watching, and especially Jake, because I know he ain't watching us on Facebook right now. He'll probably maybe hear about this on Twitter. No disrespect. I mean, he ain't watching us right now. So
at Jake True 415 on Twitter.
Okay, all right. So congratulations to him, and we'll certainly see what else unfolds with that, and I'm sure we'll play more of that later on here. But obviously, a lot to get into. Do want to get into the NFL picks in a little while here, but we will recap the baseball season that is over. We'll go into the off season. Billy, it's been a hot skip in a minute since we've had you on, so I'll spend a little bit on the World Series, few minutes now that it's over, because I know people are going to want to eventually go into the NFL, because that's always what's popular here. But give me your thoughts, Billy, on the Houston Astros winning their second World Series in franchise history, disposing of the Philadelphia Phillies 4-2.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the main takeaway I have here is I'm super happy for Dusty Baker. He's been at this for a long time. Very happy he finally got a ring. I know it's their second World Series ring, but it's the first one that I'm counting after the sign stealing scandal. I'm not counting that one.
The 2017 one, yep.
I can't say I was rooting for the Astros, but I couldn't root for the Phillies either. So I guess the best result. Look, they're a great team. You know, even I know they lost Carlos Correa, but they have, you know, they're built to win now. They're built to win for a few more years. You know, they're not quite a dynasty yet, but I think they've been in the ALCS like 6 straight years. So they're clearly
7 postseasons in 8 years. Yeah. Yep.
You know, they're clearly here to stay. And, you know, I fully expect Justin Verlander to re-sign with them this offseason. So I think they're going to be right back in the same position next year, especially if Aaron Judge leaves the Yankees. I don't see any team in the AL that's competing with the Astros for the ALCS crown.
Well, we'll certainly find out. I think for me, Jeremy Pena was definitely the story of the overall postseason for them, and some interesting observations there. I mean, for you, Rob Maraska, obviously you did mention the Astros contest. Astros also throw the second no-hitter technically in World Series history. The other one was obviously 1956 perfect game Don Larson. But give me your observations on the Houston Astros here winning their franchise's second World Series.
Well, I'm also happy that Dusty Baker won his first World Series as a manager. So now he has one as a manager and a player. That's really good. And I'm glad that the Philadelphia Phillies did not win the World Series. So that's also good. But, you know, something weird happened today with the Astros organization where GM James Click, who put this team together. Remember, last year they made the World Series, and then this year they won the World Series. He was only offered a 1-year contract as was Dusty Baker. But Dusty Baker took it, and James Click said no way. He wanted a better contract than that, and he left the Houston Astros 6 days after they win the World Series. And Jim Crane, I don't know what's going on with him, the owner of the Astros, but really to just offer a 1-year contract to the GM who just won the World Series, I just think that's ridiculous.
Well, we've seen it sometimes before. I mean, there is sometimes you see these things. They do happen from time to time, whether it's a personnel decision, front office decision, and of course, our friend Ron Laird is with us, and he says surprised Dusty is coming back. Yeah, some people certainly are, and the brute force for you, obviously, good to be with you once again, and certainly Houston Astros win their second World Series, and I'm sure you have a perspective on it. I guess for you dodged the bullet because, of course, your beloved Philadelphia Phillies and Bryce Harper don't get that ring, don't get their second ring since 2008. But give me your thoughts and impressions on the Astros here winning this year's World Series.
Yeah, so first of all, ladies and gentlemen, if I give you any advice today, this will be the first piece of advice I give you. Okay, every year for the World Series, you should listen to the Sports Report because every year I give you my prediction of who's going to win the World Series, and they never win. I've been wrong every year.
So what's the point of listening to us then if you're going to pick the person that doesn't win?
You can make a lot of money by picking the team that I don't pick to win the World Series because this year I picked the Phillies. I was wrong. I picked the Astros against the Braves. I was wrong. I picked against the Nationals. Okay, that year they won.
Yes.
I was wrong. Okay, so I've been wrong all these years. So if you want to make some money next year, tune into the Sports Report and see what my World Series pick is. Just pick it the other way. You'll win money. Anyway, to continue, listen, obviously the Houston Astros, they're a very impressive baseball team. The fact that their best player in the World Series and basically the whole playoffs was Pena, who wasn't even on the radar last year. It was Carlos Correa, and they
Guy was a rookie.
Yeah, and we're all thinking to each other, well, they lost Correa. That's a big loss. And meanwhile, they step right in with this guy Pena, and he's an absolute stud. And he comes right in there. He makes a huge impact all postseason long. I mean, between Altuve stinking, this guy picked him up over and over again. He was in every spot. He was high in the lineup. He made plays not only with his bat, but with his glove. This guy was an absolute stud. He was clearly the MVP of both the ALCS and the World Series, and he's a big reason why the Astros won. On the other hand, with the Philadelphia Phillies, right, the Astros were just a better team. And I know that, the one thing I said when I thought the Phillies were going to win was momentum. And the Astros did a good job shutting down that momentum in Philadelphia in those crucial last 2 games in Philadelphia. And they went to Houston and took care of business. So, I don't think it's any shade on the Phillies. I think the Phillies, obviously the team that I don't like. I don't like the Fanatic. I don't like Bryce Harper. Okay. I'm not here to bash them.
Do you like a Philly cheesesteak?
I'll take a Philly cheesesteak. All right. But what I'll say is this. All right. I ain't going to Philly for it because I got no friends there. But what I'll say is they might want to be a little more friendly to me today because I'm going to be respectful to their team. They made the World Series. They had a great run. They beat some good teams while doing so. The Braves and the Padres are no slouches that they beat to get there.
How about the Cardinals, too? Cardinals had a great second half. Don't forget that first series.
To add to, the Cardinals. So, you can't be upset if you're a Philly fan. You weren't expecting to be there in the first place. And the fact that the team came very, very close. They competed well with the Astros. Came very close with their lineup. That was up and down, but they played really well in the postseason.
There was a lot more down in that series. A lot more down, though.
They were, but listen, that's their team right there. They're kind of up and down. They're going to hit the homers or they're not. They're going to hit the ball hard or they're not. But the biggest thing I think with the Phillies too, Tom, is what did we always talk about? Their fielding. They always struggled to field it. And the fact that we didn't talk about that was a good thing for the Phillies. They made plays. They did enough to get to the World Series, and they just ran into a better team.
Oh, I think a great team, and I think it was Houston's time for sure. They may not have had the best record this season. Certainly the Dodgers and a few other teams, obviously the Braves, the Mets, and any other teams had better records, maybe better halves to the seasons. But the Houston Astros were, pound for pound, the World Series champions. It's not so much a matter of who has the best record. It's a matter of who is playing the best baseball And that's what makes postseason baseball so interesting. So I got to ask you guys this question before we get into Met Yankee hot stove for a few minutes. And Ron Laird says betting the house next year. Okay, well, we'll certainly find out. But I'll go with Billy first. I'll go with Rob, then the Brute Force. So, Billy, do these teams come back next year? I mean, where do they go from here? I mean, when it comes to these two teams.
The Astros do. I don't see, again, like I said earlier, I don't see a team in the American League that can reasonably challenge the Astros next year, especially if the Yankees lose Judge. The Yankees lose Judge. We'll get into that later, but
We'll get into that in a few minutes. Yep.
I don't see a contender to knock the Astros off in the American League. The National League, I think with the Dodgers in that league, with the Braves in that league, even with the disappointing playoffs, even with the disappointing with the Mets in that league, I don't think you can predict any team to go into the World Series from the National League going into the year. I don't think the Phillies are going to do it again next year. They had a lot of injury issues this year. They got healthy enough for the playoffs, but they have guys who missed a lot of time. And they have a few holes. I think Gene Segura, they didn't pick up his option, so they need to find a new second baseman. They have some young players that took strides this year, but need to take more strides next year. And their rotation, I mean, they traded for Noah Syndergaard. He's going to be a free agent. They need to fill a few spots there. So I think they're going to contend, but I'm not going to pick them to go back to the World Series now.
I think a lot of people were surprised. And listen, there was a team that was 21-29, fires Joe Girardi, and Bryce Harper, I think, was pretty much out for just about 3 months for him. So, I mean, they were basically without last year's MVP, and certainly for what they did was a tremendous job, and we'll certainly get into the Yankees. But, for you, Rob Maraska, I mean, Houston Astros, obviously, you'd think would have the horses. Billy makes some points on the National League, but the Dodgers have had the best record now a couple different times, best team in baseball, yet they themselves only have the one World Series over their last decade run. And do these teams come back? What do you think here, Rob Maraska?
Well, I definitely think Houston's going to come back. They're a powerhouse, and we don't know, we don't know what's going to happen with the Yankees, like Billy said, if they're going to. They should re-sign Aaron Judge, but who knows? Toronto's another one. Who knows what's going to happen with them? They were supposed to be a powerhouse, and, they let everybody down. As far as the Phillies go, I do not see the Phillies going back to the World Series next year. I think it was just, they had the best timing. They got hot at the best time, and, things just went their way. They listen, you're right. They beat a couple of excellent teams.
Hey, listen, definitely. They ended Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina's careers, too. I mean, listen, they had some important series. The Atlanta Braves had the best run in the National League the last 4 months of the season. And the Padres really put it all together. I mean, great job by the Phillies. And they were up 2-1 over the Astros.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't see them repeating. I think, of course, the Dodgers are going to be the Dodgers again next year. San Diego is going to be good. And I think the Mets are going to be good. Steve Cohen has his 5-year plan. This is year, number 3? So I think the Mets are going to have a really good off season. They're going to have a good hot stove, and we're going to see good things happening for the Mets. So I don't see the Phillies going back to the World Series next year.
All right, we'll definitely get into the Mets here in a few minutes. And the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, I mean, Houston Astros, the guys pretty much all seem to be in agreement that they're going to come back. And then the Phillies, people kind of say, they were kind of an aberration, a fluke. But, I mean, what do you say?
Yeah, and again, I really hate to say this because the worst thing I like to do is compliment the Phillies and say good things about them. But I'm not saying I see them in the World Series, but I certainly see them in the mix. I see them as a team that's going to get close again. Because, one thing that Billy brought up that's an interesting point is the fact that Gene Segura is a question mark. And I think the reason why he's a question mark is because, first of all, they like Bryson Stott. They could move him to second base, and then there's a lot of free agent shortstops out there that the Phillies might be interested in. And there's plenty of good names. We talked about Correa. We could go down the list of different guys. Trey Turner's another one, which, we'll see if the Mets are in play for that. But ultimately, the Phillies might try to fill that position with a really good player. And if they do, and again, don't forget this. They got Bryce Harper, who's going to have surgery, come back, be able to play right field next year, right? Castellanos is no scrub, who will be back. Schwarber. I mean, they got a lot of players. And, if they fill their pitching staff there you go, Ron Laird's right, Swanson too. Okay, there's a lot of them, that the Phillies can really plug in there. Alec Boehm had a great season for them. So why can't they be there again? But, Billy also made good points. So did Rob. You got San Diego. You got the Dodgers, right? There's a lot of teams in the National League that are going to be competing there. And I did not say our New York Mets yet, because our New York Mets still have a lot to work to do to even get to that conversation.
The Mets are going to have a really, really interesting hot stove here. I mean, there's really no guarantee. We don't know what this Mets team is going to look like.
A lot of holes to fill. The Phillies, they got a few holes, but not as many as the Mets do right now. I think that, if they fill in the middle infield spot with a good player, if they maybe get another bullpen piece, if they get maybe one more or two starters, then they have a really good team. So I'm more confident in the Phillies right now. I do think they're going to be in that conversation again. I think they could take down some of the top teams in the NL. And to all the points of Rob and Billy, there's really no conversation with the Astros. There's no team on their level. The only team I would say right now, Rob mentioned the Blue Jays, but I would say the Mariners. I think that's the one team that maybe can compete with the Astros, but I don't think the Yankees even can with Judge. I don't think they're on their level.
I would throw the Cleveland Guardians in there possibly as well. Considering the division they play, they have an easier path maybe to compete with the Houston Astros, but those are some fair points here. And interesting point here before we move on to the Yankees and Mets hot stove, what they'll do. 3 of the last 4 years, Nationals win the World Series, come out of the National League, they win 91 games and basically make the playoffs. Last weekend of the season, they were, I think, 19-31 at one point. The Braves last year, 88 wins. The Mets, we were in first place for almost about 100 days last year. Braves basically win it the last 2 weeks of the season, the NL East. And then this year, the Phillies, who were 21-29 in their own right, fire Girardi, go 87-75, and then they make the playoffs pretty much because the Brewers collapsed and somebody had to make it because of the extra wild card. They go on and go all the way to Game 6 of the World Series. So interesting there. Your last 3 of your last 4 teams that come out of the National League, 2 of them win the World Series, and the Phillies came within 2 games. So that's an interesting point to note as well here. And then going into here off-season wise, Billy, I mean, we'll go to the Yankees first on hot stove. I mean, Yankees obviously have the biggest decision that anybody's going to have in a long time when it comes to free agency and Aaron Judge, and there's some other holes as well that the Yankees have. So, I mean, what do you think here in the Yankee offseason here for their plans?
I think probably the biggest offseason that any team has is the Yankees because I can't remember if it was Justin or Chris or someone else who put in the chat that Judge hasn't committed to giving the Yankees, making the offer to the Yankees for them to match it. Look, if the Yankees lose Judge, they're not making the playoffs next year. He carried them to the playoffs this year. I look at the division. I see a Blue Jays team that should be improved, a Rays team that's always good for 90-95 wins. I see a Red Sox
Baltimore had a winning season this year, played really well.
Team that's only going to get better as they have more young talent coming in, and a Red Sox team that horribly underperformed this year and should be better next year. That division's no cakewalk, and without Aaron Judge in the middle of that lineup, I don't know if the Yankees are a playoff team. So I think they have to just give Judge whatever money he wants because there's no option out there. There's no player or a set of players that you can pivot to give you what Aaron Judge gives you. Even if they get Trey Turner, they get whoever, it's Aaron Judge is that team right now. So, we could be looking at, I can't remember the last time the Yankees didn't make the playoffs, but we could be looking at that next year if they lose Aaron Judge in free agency.
2016 was the last time the Yankees missed the playoffs.
So we could be looking at that again. And that was before Judge was up, or maybe he was like a rookie and had that horrible rookie season with them. If he leaves, and I think the Giants are going to make a hard push to sign him, I don't know what you do then, because do you maybe tear it down and rebuild if you're the Yankees at that point? I don't know that you can rebuild through free agency the way they used to under George Steinbrenner anymore. I don't know how Steinbrenner is willing to spend the money to do that. So huge offseason for the Yankees, and it all revolves around, a 6'7" MVP in Aaron Judge.
And on top of that, I think they've got some questions with their pitching staff and their
Yeah.
bullpen, because the bullpen faltered a bit in the second half. And the starting pitching, I mean, you've got a lot of questions there. And obviously,
Including,
money's,
does Mr. Cortez do it again? He had a great year last year, but he could see a slump next year. Frankie Montas had a rough time with the Yankees. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of question marks in that rotation too, for sure.
And Yankee fans' relationship with Garrett Cole is basically as love-hate you're going to get. I mean, so there's a lot there. And I think also with Judge, there's certainly things you have to ponder off the field from a business standpoint, because he is the face of that franchise. You don't have a face after Judge, and he certainly brings in a lot of dollars and cents because of what he did this season from an individual level. So, I mean, for you, Rob Maraska, when it comes to the Yankees, I mean, what do you think their offseason is going to be like here?
They have to sign Judge. They have to sign Judge. And the Giants are going to offer him. I think the Giants are going to really, over offer him. But if the Yankees do not sign Judge, he's the face of the franchise. The Yankees are going to be in disarray. It's going to be a mess. Okay, that's their number one. That's what they have to do, because the Yankee fans will go nuts if they don't sign Judge. And if Judge goes, to the Giants, forget about it. I agree with Billy. If they lose Judge, I don't know what's going to happen to the Yankees next year. I don't know if they are going to make the postseason next year if they lose Judge. That's how important Judge is to franchise. And I agree with you, Tom, about the bullpen. Their bullpen faltered towards the end of the season. Their bullpen is a mess. And they have a lot of work to do. They have more work to do than the Mets, I feel.
Well, we're going to certainly find out. Yankees definitely have some tough decisions in the brute force. I mean, obviously, like some of the guys have said, I mean, big question marks here for the Yankees. You've got Aaron Judge to contemplate. You got Anthony Rizzo, I think, as well, which is kind of gets a little bit lost in the shuffle. And I think he's an important cog. Also, we know his relationship with Aaron Judge. You've got some issues there in the starting rotation. You got some issues there in the bullpen, and the Yankees could be stuck with the likes of Giancarlo Stanton and Josh Donaldson for another year, and in Stanton's case for quite a few more years ahead, and Garrett Cole as well. So, I mean, what do you think the Yankees do here for this offseason?
Well, the guys are obviously 100% right. They have to sign Aaron Judge. And there's really only two things that are going to lure Aaron Judge to the organization. It's going to be money and legacy, right? If he wants to become an all-time great Yankee, right, and they could lure him into thinking that, then sure, he'll come. And then money. Because there's a lot of things that Aaron Judge could really think about when it comes to the Yankees on the negative side of things. For example, their recent history, all right, how they've done in the playoffs. Their manager, we don't know how his relationship is with their manager and how much he trusts Aaron Boone. I mean, and they haven't made that adjustment. They keep going with the same guy over and over again. So as a player myself, if you're, failing over and over again, you're a team that's expecting to be in the World Series every year, that can make me think about going. And the Giants are an organization, by the way, not only obviously everyone talks about how, he's a West Coast guy, blah, blah, blah. But the Giants are a team that has won recently, and they've won a lot.
3 World Series since 2010, yep.
And, even in the years that they haven't been so good, they still put up good records. I know they had a bad year last year, but look at the year before that. They won 100 and some games when no one expected it with a bunch of veterans. And they have some guys on that roster that can be around Judge, and they have a pitching staff that has potential. So to all what you guys talked about as well, yeah, the pitching staff, it's questionable, right? Are you going to get the same output from guys like Cortez? Tyone is another name, right? What's he going to give you? These are not top-of-the-line guys. I mean, Cortez has been pitching like one, but will he do it again? Then you always have the question with Garrett Cole. Yeah, he performed in the playoffs better this year. Will he do it next year? We don't really know. So there's a lot of question marks. And the last big thing you guys both mentioned is the bullpen. That's been the strength of the Yankees over the last couple of years, right? The bullpen. You think about Chapman and Britton and Holmes and all these guys they've
had.
But
when they had him as well was another big valuable arm.
They had a bunch of guys in that bullpen. You never thought to yourself, oh, well, the Yankees bullpen is not that good, right? It was always like, oh, yeah, we have a good bullpen. As long as we could get through 6 or 7 innings with our starter, we'll be fine. That is not the case anymore. They have a problem. Aroldis Chapman is a shell of himself. It goes down, the list with problems. I mean, even, other guys in that bullpen that were trusted were not very good in the postseason or even during the regular season. So they got issues. As Ron Maraska said, they got a lot of problems. And to me, if I'm Aaron Judge, I'm weighing those options, right? I'm saying, there are a lot of problems here. Should I stay here? Do I care more about the legacy, or do I care about my money and living in California and maybe being with an organization that has a history of winning recently, which unfortunately the Yankees, the team that we all talk about, all these World Series, right, over recent history, hasn't done much besides just make the playoffs. And that's not good enough. And I don't think Aaron Judge likes that. So he might see the light at the end of the tunnel for the Yankees, but he's a West Coast guy. And if they don't offer him the money, like I said, there's not much other persuasion besides the legacy of the Yankees, really, that's going to excite Aaron Judge. And you said one more thing too, Tom, his relationship with Anthony Rizzo. What about if they don't sign him? Maybe that'll make him a big impact as well.
Absolutely, no question about it. And even though the Yankees have had a strong regular season run with Aaron Boone as manager these last several years, haven't been to a World Series since 2009. That is always on the minds of a Yankee fan base. They are pretty much, as I've said it before, almost kind of like the Montreal Canadiens fan base in the NHL, where it's almost like, yes, you get to the postseason, you get there, you get deep, but it's not enough. And it's a Yankee fan base that's starving for a championship, and they've actually only won one World Series since 2000. Have only been to the one World Series since 2003. So it is a Yankee fan base. Even though they've been to the postseason a lot, they're definitely starving for something more. And I don't even know if you bring back Aaron Judge that you're almost a guarantee and a lock to even get back into the World Series or get back deep into the American League Championship Series. Because as Billy pointed out, American League East has improved. It's deep. Baltimore's come around. Boston still played around 500, even though the year before they were a top team. And obviously Tampa's always good. Toronto certainly. So those are some things to ponder. And then, Billy, the Mets offseason, I still think, is just as chaotic as well. We've seen some recent moves. Edwin Diaz is back. Chris Bassett has declined his option. We've got some other things out there as well. But I think the Mets, they have their own question marks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the big one is, Jacob deGrom. Is he back? I personally think he does come back. I don't buy any of Heyman's reports that he wants to go somewhere else. I think he ends up back. I think, again, there's no way that they're going to be outbid on him, especially after signing Max Scherzer last offseason. It's not even really a question to me. To me, the bigger question is, what do you do in center field? Because Brandon Nimmo's a free agent. Trey Turner's going to free agency. He played center field for the Nationals years ago when he first came up.
Yep.
To me, I think Turner is option 1A, Nimmo is option 1B. The reason I have Nimmo as 1B and not 1A is I think there is value in locking Nimmo up now before free agency where any teams can talk to the guy. You can center field solved now, and that clears one thing off your list. I think there's value there. And then you can still bring Trey Turner in, play him at second base, and slide Jeff McNeil somewhere else. And I'll be honest, I don't know if Chris Bassett is back. I think the allure of Carlos Rodon might be looming over Bassett's free agency, and the Mets could pivot to Rodon instead, try to build a real three-headed monster with deGrom, Scherzer, and Rodon, and you have Carrasco in the rotation, towards the back end. McGill, I think, is easily a number 5 starter in the MLB. You can probably bring in a veteran, too, if you want to have some more depth. David Peterson showed flashes as a starter this year, struggled a little bit.
Yeah, Peterson, the 2 years, has shown you, like you said, flashes at times.
Yeah.
Flashes.
I felt like he was better as a starter than a reliever last year. So that's road. And the bullpen's a huge question mark. Yeah, you got Diaz locked up, but I didn't know if anybody else who was in the bullpen last year is signed. No one who played a major role, I think, is signed for the Mets this year. Ottavino's a free agent. Lugo's a free agent. I think May's a free agent.
I think Met fans with Lugo have almost kind of that let's move on phase at this point, considering
part of me understands, but he also did turn his season around, and he's been an effective innings eater for them. He can fill multiple roles in the bullpen. I think there's value in bringing him back at the right contract. I actually think it's more likely he wants to leave and be a starter somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of played that versatile, let's say, long man, closer, short spot. I mean,
yeah,
interesting points there for sure, and certainly we'll find out. And Carlos Carrasco, I mean, certainly was really might have been one of the most valuable parts to that Met rotation because obviously we missed Scherzer for time, DeGrom, and a lot of guys, McGill, Peterson. You talk about Walker was kind of helter skelter. I guess he's coming back. I mean, so those are some points there to point to. And Rob Moroska, you're obviously always glued into this Mets team. So what do you think the Mets do here in this offseason? Obviously, as Billy pointed out, DeGrom is kind of not quite to say to the level what the Yankees are for Judge, but in terms of what he means to the franchise, probably is. But Mets do have big questions of their own with stars, and what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think the Mets did the number one thing that they should have done by re-signing Diaz. We weren't saying that a couple of years ago, but that was a must sign, and I'm glad that they got it done. There was no BS, 5-year contract, $102 million. I think that was a good job, and I'm glad that happened. As far as DeGrom goes, I think he stays. I mean, all these rumors about him wanting to go to the Rangers. Why would he want to go to the Rangers except for the money? Okay, really? Why would anybody want to go to the Rangers except for the money? I don't know. So I don't know. I don't see him leaving the Mets. I think they're gonna come to an agreement. And you know what? If they don't, then of course it's just about the money, and then they'll just have to move on. We don't know. He's a year older. We don't know what we're gonna get next year anyway. So I think that he makes a deal with the Mets, but it's possible that he doesn't. Now I'm hearing all these other rumors, about should the Mets bring back Conforto? Should they go back in time? I don't know if that's a good idea. Maybe they, give him a 1-year contract. If he accepts it, we'll see what happens. I don't know, but there's so many rumors going on already. It's like right after the World Series ended, Mets rumors started. I think Rodon, I think that would be a good signing if they could sign him. I definitely would like that. I mean, he had an excellent year, and he would fit into that rotation. And Scherzer, DeGrom, Rodon, I like it. Walker, I don't know if Walker's coming back. I don't know if he's a priority, but you know what? I would try to make a deal for Walker and re-sign him. He had
an interesting 2 years as a Met starting pitcher.
Yeah.
Very interesting 2 years.
But he the first year, all right, after the All-Star game, he just went downhill. His season, that was it. After the All-Star game 2 years ago, he lost his gas and everything. He ran out of gas. But I think the Mets should try to bring him back for that rotation. But you never know. Now there's a couple other stupid things that are going on out there, like Justin Turner. No, we don't need Justin Turner back on the Mets. Too old, done. We got rid of him how many years ago? Yeah, he was great for the Dodgers, but I think that's over. So, the Mets have a lot to think about. Trey Turner, would he be great? Yeah, he would be great. So what do we do then? Move McNeil to right field? We'll have to see, but I wouldn't mind them getting Turner and do something like that.
Oh, you want Trey Turner, not Justin Turner. I just want to make sure for everybody here.
Turner, I said. Justin Turner, forget about it. All those we don't.
Oh, you know what? I mean, Met fans would like him because he was a former Met. Also, has been a big Met killer. Might have something left in the tank. Met fans might want him for a year or 2 years, but we'll certainly see how that develops. And the Brew Force by Wise, certainly the Mets have a lot of interesting decisions. I was thinking because I had the Knicks game on in the background, and the Knicks do get to 6-6 here, which we'll definitely talk about later on because the Knicks have had, I guess, in middling. I think Stephen A. Smith's line was before Knicks Jets. Knicks have kind of had like a middle of the road type of start, but hey, that's better than I guess to be expected. But we'll definitely talk about that later on. But Mets definitely have some question marks. DeGrom's at the top, but some other guys as well. Kind of have to figure out bullpen, I think, was pointed out here. Some fair points. But what do you think here in this Met offseason?
Yeah, well, as the guys accurately said, it starts with Jacob DeGrom. Obviously, you got to see what happens there. Jacob deGrom is not just a great Met pitcher who obviously, had an interesting season with the injury and coming back late, but he's a face of the team. He's one of the faces of the team, and if you lose him, it kind of, sets the stage to see really who is the new face of the team. I think that answer is pretty obvious. It's probably Pete Alonso. But I would say that losing deGrom would definitely break a little bit of that leadership room in the Mets clubhouse. Because I think between Scherzer and deGrom, that the leadership, especially in the rotation, was pretty stable. I think they need to bring them back, and I agree with the guys. I think they will. I think they'll figure it out. To Rob Maraska's point, Texas, they what are they going to do? They're not even going to compete in their division because Houston's there. So they're not going to do that. The best they're going to do is maybe make a wild card and not go that far. That's not exciting, where the Mets have a legitimate chance to win a World Series. So I think deGrom will realize that and make the right decision. Now, the guy who we need to talk about is Brandon Nimmo. This is a guy who's been very successful for the Mets. He does a little bit of everything. He bats at the beginning of the lineup. He gets good at bats. He has some speed. He's become a really good center fielder for us. And, is a very good baseball, center fielder. I'm not saying he's top notch, but he's very good. And a lot of teams are going to want that. So
he's an energy guy. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, so I think that, the one thing that I could agree with you guys on is that if he goes and we get like a Trey Turner, at least you still have a guy who can steal bases, work the count at the top of the count, work the counts, have a speed threat. There's a lot of things, but if you don't get a guy like that and you lose Nimmo too, I think there's a major loss there. I think that's a guy who really does a lot of things that people don't maybe look at. Maybe you look at the statistics, but you don't realize how much Brandon Nimmo really impacts the Mets team as a whole. So that's
I think with Nimmo, when he's in the lineup, the team usually scores more runs. Look at his run when he's been here for us. That's usually what it comes down to.
He gets on base. It's the one thing he does. Maybe his average doesn't always show it, but he gets on base. And to go to Rob's point, which I'm actually a little bit softer on, I think the Mets should take a flyer on Michael Conforto. I think they should. And the reason why is, first of all, I know it's damn Scott Boras, and, I heard him talking on social media, and I hate listening to that guy talk. He's just – it's annoying listening to him. But, it's Scott Boras, right? They have to be realistic. Michael Conforto just sat a whole season, okay? It's not like everyone's clamoring for him and no one's going to give him a fat contract now. So he's got to take a contract and go into a situation that will help him, right, exceed, like get better, like maybe get to that contract again in a winning environment. And he knows the Mets clubhouse. And the last time I checked, he was pretty good with the Mets before he got hurt, and they ended up, obviously, it was his own fault that he wasn't signed because he had the contract sitting right on his plate, before the last season that he played for us. But he's been a good player. He has a lot of capability. He's still young. He's not old. He still has something, I think, in the tank. And it's not like he has to be an everyday player. You have Marte, right? You have McNeil potentially going to the outfield if you make another move, right? So I think that it's a good sign because not only can it be maybe a upside, low side type of thing where upside maybe becomes a starting outfielder, but what's the low side, right? He doesn't succeed. He could be a better bench option than half the guys that we had on the bench. Terrence Gore was on the bench and some other names, that we had on the bench. Okay,
he's gotta hold a record for what's he won 3 World Series, and he's had like 90 career bats in the major leagues. And with different teams he's won a World Series as well. He has to be in the record books for something.
What I'm saying is, sure, that's speed, but we don't have any impact bats on the bench. We don't have anybody who scares you like, oh, you're gonna come in, this is gonna be the guy.
That was the problem with this team the whole year. Even though, yes, offensively we scored a lot of runs. Yes, they had at times surges. But other than Alonso or even the bench, you didn't have anybody that you said, you know what? Oh, okay, yeah, I got to pitch around him. I guess Vogelback comes back. Maybe you pencil Vogelback in off the bench to an extent. Maybe that's a guy you look at. Marte, I think, is a big key to this team because he did miss some time for us during the season. Conforto, you bring up the brute force. Do you have a point other than 2021, he was a very productive hitter. Other than I think the 1 year we had like a 210 in the first, I think it was 20.
His first full year here, he was brutal. But
yeah, other than that, I mean, he's been a 25, 26 home run guy. But did he price himself out? Do teams look at it and say, well, he had the injury as well? That's the big key. It's a big question mark there.
And there's, going to Brute's point, there's an easy role for him as a platoon bat with Canna in that left field spot. Remember he played right field with Mets. He played left field in college, and he came up originally as a left fielder. So you can easily slot him back in there and platoon him with Canna in left field. Especially if you strike out on a Trey Turner or someone like that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll certainly find out. I want to give a shout out to my very good friend Anthony Finkel, who is here with us. He says, "What's up? Long time no stream." That's because last week we did coverage with the New York Harlem Underdogs of the ABA for the first half of the show, and we then did our NFL picks, which we're going to do here in about a few minutes, which segues me to, because we are going to move on. I got a little bit of taste of baseball, but I know, Rob Maraska, you're a busy guy and want to give you some closing thoughts and anything else you want to plug or say. Obviously, one more time, you want to repeat the contest winner. I know we'll have another contest in the coming weeks as well, so I turn it over to you. Anything you want to plug, and floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick thing. The guys talk about Conforto. Yeah, he would be good in a platoon situation, probably. I mean, we don't know. We haven't seen him in a year. Aaron Judge didn't make a mistake when he didn't accept the Yankees offer, but Conforto made a big mistake when he didn't take the Mets offer. And that's it. That's all I got to say about that. One more time, the winner of the contest is Jake True from San Francisco. And yes, I'm going to have another contest, probably a Jets contest coming up soon. I'll let you know within the next couple of weeks. It's either the Jets or the Islanders. I'm working on it. So I'll let you guys know. You can reach me on Twitter at R Maraska and Facebook at Rob Maraska. And, thanks a lot, guys.
Absolutely, and Brandon Nimmo obviously will be a big key to things for the Mets. He's been a high on-base guy. That's one thing you might want to consider. His on-base is always very high, but staying healthy has been kind of the big question mark for him. So we'll certainly figure all that out, Mr. Maraska. We'll definitely speak with you next week, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll get one nice day, I think, of weather tomorrow, and then it looks like we'll now be transitioning into some colder weather after that. So enjoy the last day of warmth, it looks like, tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.
All right, and we are now here on Sportswire Radio, speaking all the latest happenings here in the world of sports. We're going to go into our NFL picks shortly, and I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. Alongside me is Billy McInerney, formerly of Elite Sports. Billy's been with us here on and off over the past several years. Always good to have Billy. You can follow Billy on Twitter at WMCINE. And, of course, the brute force Brad Weiss, who might be a happy man because the New York Knicks did beat the very, very sad Detroit Pistons 121-112. We'll get into that later on. And, of course, Brute Force is also Coach Brad Weiss. You also can follow him on Instagram on his coach account. We'll get into some St. Joe's Long Island Golden Eagles. Unfortunately, our boys didn't play too good against Pratt. We'll talk about that for a few minutes. I happened to watch the game a bit, some different things. I'll have a thought or two on college basketball. Season started Tuesday, so some of our teams are in action. We'll get into that as well. And I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. If you like what you hear from us on Facebook, continue to give us a like at Sportswire Radio, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. We'll be back tomorrow night with WCE coverage of Wrestling Championship Entertainment. And I want to shout out the company because they gave us this nice little patch that they put on, which I want to share here, which I believe it's on this side here for Sportswire Radio. So I want to thank the guys for putting together that. I want to thank the owner of the company, Liz, for doing that, for continuing our partnership. I want to thank everybody there on staff that has supported us, and they actually, on all of their shows, which is at Wrestling Championship Entertainment, WC Heat on YouTube, they run a promo for us. So if we got some extra followers of late, we can thank them for that. We'll have full coverage throughout the season of Wrestling Championship Entertainment, and I want to thank the company for that. But in the meantime, we are speaking all things related here to the world now of the NFL. We're going to do our picks here. Let's go with Billy first because, Billy, it's been a while, and I know that you're kind of behind the picks, and the Brute Force is kind of I guess, put up the screen here. But before we do to you, Billy, I mean, the brute force, do I still see John Gonzalez there of the Sports Authorities group that's still in the lead, or am I seeing things?
No, unfortunately, you're not seeing things, and I'm trying to hide through the bad light here. Oh,
there you go. There you go. There you
I'm trying
go.
to hide through the bad light that I fell down. Had a brutal week last week.
Yeah, you actually, you ragged on me the last 3 weeks, and yet we're separated by 2 games, and I see Anthony Finkel is now ahead of you as well. So you got your own catching up to do there, mister.
And John Gonzalez is absolutely on fire right now. This guy can't miss a pick. He's taking the lead. He's taking a 6-game lead on me, and Chris is still doing well. So,
yes, me and Chris will be back with us next week.
Chris sent me his picks today, and he told me, listen, we're going to get back ahead of John Gonzalez, all right? But right now, John Gonzalez is ahead, all right? I can't say anything mean, all right? He's the king right now. He's the guy up top. He said he would be, but it's still week 10, and we got time. So pump the brakes, John Gonzalez. I'll be coming back soon. But I got to get a better week than last week. It was brutal last week.
Well, there were some brutal games. I mean, it wasn't my more favorite week of the season, but we'll get your thoughts on that as well. But let's get to some picks here. We'll start, as we do, chronologically in order. And, Billy, I'll go with you first. And going with the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which will be in Munich. This will be in Germany. So this will be our usual, or I guess almost semi-regular Europe game this week. And it's a 9:30 start time on the NFL Network. And the Seahawks are 2.5-point underdogs against the Bucs, and 44.5 is the over/under. And Billy, I think the Seattle Seahawks have to be one of the biggest surprises in the NFL this season. Maybe you could say the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe you could say some other teams the other way around. But the Seahawks with Geno Smith, who would have guessed this? I mean, what a story. What a job Pete Carroll has done. Maybe this is his best coaching job yet. And the Buccaneers, the first place Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 4-5. I mean, boy, if there was a way, the NFL found a way to kind of save Tom Brady's season. I was speaking with somebody at a bar 2 days ago, and we were speaking about it. And the guy goes, well, I really think the NFL is rigged. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers victory over the Los Angeles Rams is a prime example of that. But for you, Billy, Ron Laird's Bucs and the Seattle Seahawks, what do you think? And who do you think may win?
Yeah, you're right. I do think the Seahawks are the biggest surprise of the NFL. And I mean, the Buccaneers have been surprisingly disappointing too. They have almost the same roster as last year, and they're sitting at a losing record. And I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to pick a Geno Smith-led team over a Tom Brady-led team. I think the Seahawks win this game.
Wow.
It's in a neutral site. The Buccaneers, I don't know what's going on. Maybe Tom Brady's distracted with his divorce, but whatever's going on.
I mean, he's played okay. I mean, he hasn't played horrific.
No, he hasn't. But the offensive line's been a little bit leaky. I think losing their center hurt them a lot. And
whoa, we woke up the bear.
But it's Geno Smith just keeps trucking along, and he's going to get a lot of money this offseason. I think he leads Seahawks another win out in Germany.
I'll tell you what, I mean, who would have thought this? I mean, Geno Smith having a career year and everything else that he's done here, really, really an extraordinary story. And John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group is with us. And, of course, if you're on Facebook, continue to like and support the Sports Authorities Group at the Sports Authorities Group. And the Brute Force Brad Weiss, one of your favorite people, John Gonzalez, is with us. And the Seattle Seahawks, one of your favorite teams, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, against one of maybe your other favorite teams. And somebody has to win here, and the Seahawks have a lot of the momentum, and the Bucs are in first place. So for what it's worth, it's a battle of 2 first-place teams here, and who do you think comes away with the win? And Bucs 2.5-point favorites, 44.5 is the over/under.
So first of all, before I make the pick, Tom, can you do me a favor? Let's take John Gonzalez's comment off here. Let's put Ron Laird's comment back on the screen, because Ron Laird, all right, is a Buccaneers fan. Okay, we know that on the
I've known Ron Laird a long time. Yep.
The Buccaneers fan. I know he's having a tough time. They barely squeaked by last week in a really ugly game. But guess what, Ron Laird? I'm going to be the sense of confidence for you. You know why? Because I'm taking the Buccaneers to win this.
Well, how is it an upset alert, though, because the Bucs are still favorites?
I thought the Seahawks were favored.
No.
I said the Bucks are 2.5 point favorites.
Anyway,
Early on the
let's
button
just
there,
say
Brute.
this. All right, I was getting ahead of myself. Let's just say this, okay? A lot of people are picking Seattle, okay? A lot of people are picking Seattle, and I can guarantee you right now that more people are picking Seattle than Tampa Bay.
I would agree with you on that.
Because of the fact of the miracle story of Geno Smith, the way that the Seahawks are playing as a team. But I think this is a game where it's at a neutral site, right? It's all the way far in Germany, okay? And I think it's going to be one of those ugly games out in Europe. And
The
it's going
time zone's an issue, and you don't
there's
really
gonna be
know
a
what
whole
to make of
bunch
the
of
field
things.
conditions. Yeah.
It's not going to be a pretty game, but this is what I see, and I think it's the same thing that happened last week. It's going to be a close game, and Tom Brady's going to get the ball at the end of the game, and he's going to lead a game-winning touchdown drive to get the Buccaneers back to 500. That is my prediction. I think it's going to be close. Maybe the Seahawks will be winning at the end of the game. Maybe it'll be by 2, by 3. Okay, but I just think that Tom Brady, at the end of the day, even with his 45-year-old self and everything's going wrong and his line stinks. We could go down the list of things. You got Todd Bowles as the coach. You got everything going wrong. Okay, but I think that in this, as you mentioned, Tom, terrible division, obviously they still have a chance to win it. And I think this week they're going to find a way to squeak by the Seahawks. We're going to come a little bit further down to earth. And I think that'll happen mainly because of the travel. Okay, and I think Tom Brady will lead them to a game-winning touchdown at the end of the game.
And I think that division for the Bucks is kind of almost set up for them, even though they've really have played not good at all since their 2-0 start. That if they go even 8-9 at this point, they'll probably win that division probably comfortably. So we'll see here. Ron Laird does like the Seahawks, but he does say go Bucks. John Gonzalez says welcome to school. He likes the Bucks. Ron Laird says yes, go Bucks. Let's go. I'm going with the Bucks because there is a point that it has to kind of at least come down a little bit back to earth for Geno Smith. I mean, I know he hasn't played as well as he did the first, let's say, 4 or 5 weeks of the season, but the numbers are still pretty strong. The QB rating is like off the charts. I almost always keep asking, where was this when he was with the Jets? But I do feel like for whatever reason, Seattle is going to run into their luck running out a little bit here this week, and I kind of think that Tampa finds a way to get to 500, and considering Thursday's game that we saw between the Falcons and Panthers, that Tampa Bay gives themselves a little bit of a cushion for what it's worth here in that NFC South, that horrendous NFC South. And the Brute Force, I'm going to go straight to the top, and we'll go with Billy first on this. And I guess I could say it's the top, Billy, because our much beloved Detroit Lions found a way to win a game against the Green Bay Packers, who almost, you want to talk about disappointments, biggest disappointment, I think, of the season. I mean, the Rams as well are definitely going to give them a run for their money as well, but the Packers, everything seems like has come down to them, and we'll get into them for sure later on, but Lions and Bears have played a lot better offensively. This should definitely be a fun game because, Lions games for the most part here generally tend to be fun from an offensive standpoint, though not as much last week. But Bears are a field goal favorite here. 48.5 is the over-under, Billy. So, I mean, what do you think here? Lions, I guess, are a little bit back on track, and Bears at least have been interesting these last 3 or 4 weeks, so it should be a fun game, I would think. And who do you think comes away with the win?
Yeah, this should be. I think it's gonna be a fun game. I don't think there's gonna be much defense played on the other side. And I'm gonna apologize to John Gonzalez. I know the Lions are his favorite team, but I think Justin Fields has another big game, and I think ultimately the Bears pull this one out, probably by like a 4 to 7 point margin. I think they end up covering that spread. I love what Justin Fields has done these last few weeks. I think the Bears have finally figured out the best way to utilize him, and the Lions have not taken the step forward I thought they would this year.
Yeah, we spoke about that on Sportswire last week.
I've been disappointed in how they've looked this year. I thought, they were competitive all last year, even though they lost a lot of games. I thought they were going to win some of those games this year. It's just not happening. And I'm not sure if that's the coaching or it's Jared Goff or it's both. But, this should be a game that the Lions can pull out. But I think Justin Fields has nothing for the Bears to win.
Fair points. The brute force, I kind of feel like that actually this game is important for both teams in some ways because it's two teams that are building for something. So I'll get to Ron Laird and John Gonzalez and who they think wins in a second. But I do think in a way it is an important game for both teams. Bears obviously have a young quarterback in Justin Fields who's playing actually pretty well the last few weeks. And the Lions, we'd hope, get back-to-back wins and at least get themselves back on a level of stability, and probably for their coach Dan Campbell, he's praying for that as well. But what do you think here? Bears 3-point favorites, 48.5 is the over/under.
I'm gonna admit to you guys, this pick right here has absolutely zero logic, and it just has bias written all over it. Okay, because I want the Detroit Lions to win this game. Okay. I was the guy who came on this show and said, "Oh, the Detroit Lions are winning 6 games minimum. They're gonna win 6 games this season, and they have done nothing but lose 6 games so far." All right, and listen, last week, they beat the lowly Packers, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I do agree with Billy McInerney, and I do see that Justin Fields is playing really good football. The Bears have been better over the last couple of weeks, and I do like what I'm seeing from the Bears. But what I will say is, as Billy highlighted perfectly, this is going to be a shootout. There's going to be no defense on either side, right? Both teams are going to be going up and down the field. And I know that Justin Fields not only could, use his arm, but also has been doing a good job running the football. And Jared Goff is not exactly a runner. But I do think that the Lions are just going to outscore the Bears this week in I'm going to say a 35-31 game. It's going to be a lot of scoring. It's going to be up and down the field. And I just think the Lions will. And I'm going to say there's zero logic to this. I just pray it happens because I want the Lions to win this game.
Well, let's see what some of the guys think here. And John Gonzalez surprisingly goes with the Bears.
John. Come on, John. You're supposed to be Detroit's finest. Come on.
Ron Laird says Lions in a close game, and I'm going with the Detroit Lions, but I disagree with you on one thing. There is logic because sometimes here when a team wins, especially in an important game that they win, it kind of brings momentum. Bears are playing well offensively, but I still don't trust them. And I think at the end of the day here, the brute force, that sometimes when a team like this, because the Lions have lost some games. The Seahawks game comes to mind where that was a game that they should have won. And even the Vikings game, I kind of think if you go back early on the Lions season and why they are 2-6, that Vikings game, they had that lead. They were winning comfortably, had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. Vikings never come back in the fourth quarter down double digits. That game kind of set them back on a chart. I say at the end of the day, Lions win. You kind of stole my thunder, so I'm going to have to back it up a little bit. 31-28 here, and I want to give a shout-out to our very good friend, Mr. Steven Saperstein, who has Jared Goff as his fantasy quarterback. I mean, was that the quarterback that was on the board? I mean, listen, at least you could have picked Kirk Cousins like some people we know. But, I mean, was that the only quarterback on the board? I mean, Steve, you got to give me a logic on why Jared Goff was the fantasy quarterback. I mean, I would have even said pick Daniel Jones at this point, even though statistically Goff might have better numbers. But you got to give us a reason there. I mean,
I will say on my behalf I'm hoping this is for Steve's case. All right. Oh, jeez. I was hoping that maybe just like me, because I had to pick up Daniel Jones because I have Joe Burrow. So I had to pick up Daniel Jones for the
Joe
week.
Burrow last week was good. Last week, Joe Burrow was good to brute force.
Yeah, but again, I have him as my starter, so I had to pick up Daniel Jones just for the bye week. I was hoping that was the case for Steve Saperstein, that maybe he just needed Goff for a week.
Steve said he's had horrible luck, and he said he had Tom Story, long story. Leave me alone, fellas. But that's an interesting point. Statistically speaking, I mean, Tom Brady's numbers and Jared Goff's numbers, I mean, I hate to say
numbers. I have to say, for fantasy, he's probably more useful than he is as a real quarterback.
Well, that was exactly my point, is that at the end of the day, he's probably going to come up with, 3,900, 4,000, 4,100 yards?
I mean, 20, 25, 30, maybe not 30, but 20, 25 touchdowns,
Well, I'll tell you this much. I mean, you'd probably rather have him than Mitchell Trubisky, like some of us here who are Steelers fans, the brute force. I'll certainly raise my hand on that. I mean, I did say before the season, no, Mitchell Trubisky, pick Mitchell Trubisky. He's got a winning record. He was okay, Coach Tomlin. So I'll give you that much. Steve. But I'm with you, Steve. I'm going with the Lions. I'm the resident Lions fan here, so we'll go with that. But, Billy, let's go to a game on a lighter note where I think a lot of people if you would have said that this would have been a potential Super Bowl preview, you would have said I'm nuts. I might be nuts to begin with, Billy, but I'm talking about the Buffalo Bills and the Minnesota Vikings. Even though our beloved Jets beat the Bills, we still feel like at the end of the day, the Bills are still the team in the AFC, and the Vikings 7-1. It seems like this is finally the year of Kirk Cousins. Finally, it looks like he's going to get into the postseason. He's going to have a deep run. We always get teased. We always kind of feel like this is it, but no. But now it looks like the Lions, forget them, forget all the troubles he's had. 7-1 Minnesota Vikings, 6-2 Buffalo Bills in Minnesota, and right now we've got the Bills 3.5-point favorites, though, on the road. Certainly the NFL respects the Bills, even though Josh Allen had probably his worst game, I want to say, statistically, in about, 3 years, 2.5 years? But 43.5 is the over-under, and what do you think here, Billy?
Yeah, I've been very impressed with the Vikings this year. I did not expect them to do what they've done this year. Kirk Cousins has had an amazing season, especially for Kirk Cousins. In years past, this is a game I would have said Kirk Cousins throws it away. This is a game I would have said, but no chance. But I think Steve makes a great point. I don't know if Josh Allen's playing.
He's questionable right now. He's questionable.
If he does play, what he's going to be able to do.
We won't know that, by the way, till NFL pregame shows.
I think if Josh Allen is healthy, the Bills win this game comfortably. But that injury, it scares me too much. I think the Vikings win this game. Whether Allen plays or not, I think Allen's going to be very limited if he does play. I don't think he's going to be able to get the ball downfield the way he usually can. I don't think he's going to be able to feed Stephon Diggs the way he usually does. He'll still be able to run, but take away his ability to throw the ball, he's not going to be able to run as much. Give me the Vikings winning this one in the upset.
I don't know, man. The Vikings, the way they've played this season, they've been the kings of the fourth quarter. Who would have guessed this season? The kings of the fourth quarter would have been the Minnesota Vikings. The brute force, this is, to me, it still could be potentially, as crazy as it sounds, a potential Super Bowl preview. Vikings 7-1, Bills 6-2. Bills do seem a little bit mortal right now. I think Billy makes an excellent point, and I think so does Steve as well. Basically, if Josh Allen's out, I think that this line moves significantly before kickoff. If we get that announcement maybe by tomorrow evening, I say we won't. But, what do you think here? This is probably one of those games, the brute force, depending on Josh Allen, that I probably say don't pick it all, but we have to pick it here on Sportswire Radio. So what do you think here?
Yeah, so a few things before I get to my pick. Number one, I'm pretty sure this game is being played in Buffalo. This game is being played in Buffalo.
I stand corrected. Yes, I did notice that.
That's correct. So that's number one. Number two, all right, it better be Case Keenum this week. And I don't want to hear any other name than Case Keenum. I might, because again, the Atlanta Falcons re-earned their name as dumbest team this past
I was thinking about that. Anthony Finkel and I were watching that game last night in Duffy's. You know what the first thing we said watching that game was? Brute Force is going to say it tomorrow. Dumbest team in the league, Atlanta Falcons.
They re-earned that name after I was thinking about giving it away from them. They just re-earned it yesterday. All right, so that's number one. But number two, what I was going to say is, okay, if the Bills play Josh Allen this week, I might think about naming them the dumbest team, okay? Because this injury, first of all, you're talking to somebody who's had a right elbow injury. Okay?
I remember it.
Had it, okay? My dominant arm is my right arm. So is Josh Allen's, okay? And I know exactly how the injury that's been described that he potentially has feels like and what it does. And it's not something you want to mess with, okay? It's a similar situation to my buddy Bryce Harper, right? Who had a similar injury, didn't go in the field. Why? Because he couldn't throw, right? Because it messed his elbow up. Okay.
Yep.
Josh Allen goes into the game with an elbow that is clearly not at 100%. The Bills are not worried about week 10. They're worried about winning the Super Bowl. And yes, everyone's talking about how, you got to realize, Brad, the Dolphins are right behind them. The Jets are right behind them. But at the same time, the Bills are still going to win enough games to make the playoffs. I think that that's something that, even with Case Keenum, they could survive a few weeks and still make the playoffs. But without Josh Allen, Tom Bryce, It doesn't matter whether or not they make the playoffs. They're going nowhere. Josh Allen is their team. He's the guy they need at quarterback.
Oh, he's the franchise, right? I mean, he's the guy. I mean, he is the franchise.
So if he goes out there and he plays this week, right, and gets hurt or makes it worse for some reason, it would be the dumbest thing by the Buffalo Bills to have put him on the field. And from everything that I hear with this injury, Tom Bryce, it reminds me directly of my elbow injury, and I had to sit out 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, you were out a while with that injury. I remember it very well. That injury, we've talked about that off the air. We've talked about it in the past.
We don't know 100% what the severity is, but don't be dumb. Sit them this week. They're going to lose the game to Minnesota, so let's put the upset alert on there. Okay, they're going to lose the game to Minnesota.
But how is it? I guess it is an upset alert. Yeah, but now would it be an upset though if they say Allen is out tomorrow and that line moves?
No, it won't be.
If the line, as of right
now, it's an upset. You know.
Okay, fair.
Right now, Friday night on the Sports Report. Okay, at
I got you. I got you.
It's an upset right now because we don't know about Josh Allen. But if Josh Allen's not playing, no doubt it is not an upset. Okay, and I think that Minnesota wins. And guess what? I mean, let's send the flowers to Uncle Rob. I mean, the Vikings, if they win this week, are 8-1. That is impressive.
Uncle Rob. Listen, Uncle Rob must be like, is this real? Is this really happening?
He's living in fantasy land. I don't know if he's seen this in quite a long time. Especially Cousins.
Even when they made the NFC Championship game in 2016, I don't think that team was as dominant as this team right now from a record standpoint. I mean, they've had some good seasons, but not to this level where they're just like, I mean, they're going to cakewalk the NFC North. They're probably going to win that division by like.
They already got the NFC North.
But they're going to win it possibly by like 5 or 6 games. Seriously, they're going to win it by 5 or 6 games at this point. I mean, let's get to some of the guys here. John Gonzalez still likes the Bills, taking the Vikings in a high-scoring game. Allen is playing. You can bet on it. No way on the planet do the Vikes make the Super Bowl. But who in the NFC right now would you say, other than the Eagles? I mean, do you believe in the Eagles? That would be, I guess, the only other team you could say that might be worthy. I guess Dallas maybe, but I'm going with the Vikings. I'm with you guys. I'm going with the Vikings here because this team has been the king of the close games, the king of the fourth quarters. Kirk Cousins has played as well as you could expect him to play. It's an afternoon game, so as we've talked about here throughout the season on Sportswire, that means he should be good for a good game. And I just, you know what? The Allen factor, you guys have convinced me. But I think at the end of the day, Vikings get the edge and they go to 8-1 and they put themselves in a really, really good spot in the NFC North where they could have a 4 or 5 game lead. I mean, with basically half the season to go. I mean, who would have guessed? I mean, the Minnesota Vikings. So I say that they're the team that right now is to beat the NFC, although John Gonzalez says Eagles and Cowboys. Fair points there as well. So that is certainly something to also ponder. But let's go to our next matchup that I have here in Arrowhead. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs, Billy. And certainly Chiefs win. I guess it was an okay game to watch Sunday night. Not an impressive performance for the Chiefs, but they do enough to win as they kind of usually do. And Patrick Mahomes threw the ball, but felt like 690 times. I think it was 69 times, actually. But they do find a way to win there, certainly late and in overtime. But, I mean, what do you think here? Jaguars, I guess, finally break through. They come back down 20-0 against the Raiders, and they finally win. I guess it's a young team that could use a win like this. But in Arrowhead, I think we all kind of know what's going to happen here, Billy. 9.5-point favorite to the Chiefs. 50.5 is the over-under, and what do you think?
Yeah, I haven't been as impressed by the Chiefs this year as I have been in years past. They're not quite as dominant. The offense isn't quite.
We talked about that last year on the show. You know, we talked about that last year.
The offense hasn't been humming the way it used to, but they still have Patrick Mahomes. They're still one of the best teams in the NFL. I don't see any way the Jaguars win. I am going to say the Jaguars cover the spread. Now, I think Trevor Lawrence is finally starting to figure it out. I think the Jaguars' defense is better than people give it credit for, and the Chiefs' offense is just hit or miss enough that the Jaguars can keep this close. But ultimately, I have zero faith they can win this game. I'm taking the Chiefs by probably 6 or 7. I'll say 27-20. The Chiefs win.
But you do say that the Jaguars kind of hang in there.
Yeah.
All right. I can respect that. They do. They played hard this year. The Jaguars.
Yeah.
They definitely.
The
They've
Urban
taken.
Meyer debacle is over. They're a new
Yeah,
team.
they've definitely taken the baby step, the obligatory baby step. And the Brute Force, I still say though, Chiefs and Arrowhead, hard for me to bet against them, especially against the Jaguars. But do you see anything differently? You feel frisky at all because you're behind John Gonzalez in the standings, or what?
Root.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the generous donation by John Gonzalez by picking the Bills in the last game because that's a game. All right, that's a donation for me. I appreciate that, John Gonzalez. He's trying to let me back in. But anyway, so when it comes to this game, there's no doubt in my mind the Chiefs are winning. I think everybody's going to take the Chiefs. Okay, but I'm actually going to say I disagree with Billy McInerney. I think they're going to cover the spread. I think that the one thing is Kansas City last week went up against the Titans. They kind of got. The Titans, to their credit, right, they were very much aggressive.
They were scrappy, very scrappy last week.
Talking a lot of trash, right? And the Titans, to their credit, have actually played the Chiefs pretty well. I'm not saying they've beaten them that much, but they've played them well, and they have
beat them in Tennessee last year, though, beat their brains in. We spoke about it on Sportswire last year.
They do have their wins, so I think Tennessee deserves credit for keeping that game close. I don't think Jacksonville's Tennessee. And not only that, I think there's going to be something about what happened last week that's going to have the Chiefs going absolutely ballistic this week. I think they're going to go off. Everything's going to be clicking. They're going to be throwing the ball over the field. They're going to be running the ball. The Jaguars are going to get intimidated because they're still young. They haven't been in an environment like that, okay, like Kansas City. And I just don't see a very good result here. I see the Chiefs scoring like 40 points and the Jaguars scoring like 20-some points. It ends up being a blowout game.
I have it less than. I have Kansas City 35, Jacksonville 14. I do not see Jacksonville in this game at all. But let's see some of the guys. John Gonzalez likes Kansas City. Ron Laird, Chiefs in a walk. Ron Laird says, though, Jags hang tough in the first half. And John Gonzalez also wants to remind you, the Brute Force, he likes the Bills by 10 over the Vikings. So he just wanted to point that out. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, that's what he's saying. He wants to reiterate to you.
A healthy Josh Allen doesn't win that game by 10 points, let alone, an injured Josh Allen.
Hey, John, how about we if they don't win by 10 and they lose, that's 2 points off your score. How about that?
Is that legal? Is that legal here? Are we able to do that on Sportswire Radio? I guess.
Technically, my rules. I'm the one putting the records up. So.
Oh God. Oh God. Let's hope we don't have to worry about the validity of our pick'em standings here in the NFL. Let's play.
A lot different if we were doing that for all of us.
Oh God help us all. But you know what, Billy? Let's go to another game. Another intriguing matchup here, and that's a team we mentioned a few minutes ago, the Miami Dolphins, who I guess with Tua, they're pretty much almost a bang-em winner team here the last year and a half, and the Cleveland Browns, who were, I guess, kind of where I guess you thought they would be here in the first half of the season. We're in Miami, and obviously Dolphins 3.5-point favorites. I would have thought a little bit more, but I guess here we'll find out your thoughts. Over-under is 49, and what do you think here? I have a feeling, though, that we're going to see some points on the board. That's what I do agree with Vegas on, but what do you think?
Yeah, the Browns have, again, done what I've expected. The fact that the Bengals have been so bad has kind of allowed them to stay in the race for when Deshaun Watson returns, which is coming very soon. The Dolphins have been a good team this year. They were a solid team the second half of last year. They started out at the horrible start. They went that run, almost made the playoffs last year.
Yep, won 8 of the last 9 games. Yep.
I think there's still some injury questions about Hill and Watt. I haven't been following that situation that closely, but I think they're both dealing with some stuff. But ultimately, I don't see the Browns winning. I think the Dolphins have one of the – I don't think they have a shot winning the division, but they could be the top wild card, I think. And I think they keep it rolling. I think they win – I think they cover that spread. 3.5 points. I agree with you. I would thought it would have been larger. I would have thought like a 5.5, 6.5.
Same here. I thought about maybe 5. I would say 5.
The Dolphins can put up points. The Browns just can't. This could actually get out of hand. I think the Browns, I don't know if their offense has a ceiling. I'm going to say Dolphins 35, Browns 20.
All right, that's fair. And the brute force Miami Dolphins do scream like an 11-win football team. They scream like 11-6 at me, maybe 12-5 if they're lucky. And since last year, where they really had that almost near miraculous run to make the postseason, other than the couple of weeks that Tua was hurt, I mean, this is a team that hasn't lost many football games. And it's a Browns team that certainly has missed Deshaun Watson. It's not this team that we've thought the last couple of years that had all the weapons and was supposed to be a certain spot. And what do you think here in Miami? And Dolphins small favorites, but what do you think?
Yeah, so I'll admit I was tempted to try to pick up a game on John Gonzalez.
I knew you were going there.
I'll admit I was tempted, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take the Dolphins, but I will actually again disagree with Billy McInerney on the spread. I do think the Browns are going to be close, and I think that although a big majority of that is going to be the Browns' run game against the Dolphins' defense. I think that the two-headed monster of Hunt and Chubb are going to have a big game this game. I think that the Browns will score. They'll stay in the game. They will score. But the Dolphins will end up pulling away and winning the game towards the end of the game by about a field goal, in my opinion. So I'm going to say, similar to the game we just saw on Thursday, I'm going to take a Dolphins 25. All right. I'm going to say the Browns score 22.
It's an interesting 25-22. Are you expecting like a safety, a 2-point conversion to be connected there? Kind of an interesting 25-22. You don't see that too often in an NFL or a college game, but let's see what the guys think. John Gonzalez likes Miami. So does Ron Laird, and so do I. I think Miami wins 31-24, 31-23, something like that. I do think that Miami covers, and I think that it's definitely over the 49 because I think as you guys have pointed out, this year, Miami can put up points. Last year, Miami's key to their comeback was their defense, and they just shut teams down. This year, they're able to put up a few more points. And Billy, we're going to talk about our other team here. That's kind of, I guess, one of our obligatory favorites on Sportswire Radio. Well, kind of my favorite along with John Gonzalez, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they're playing the New Orleans Saints, and it's in Pittsburgh, and it's the Saints 1.5-point favorites on the road. So that tells you what Vegas these days thinks of the Steelers. Very rare that the Steelers are an underdog. I think against the Bucs they were underdog as well at home a few weeks ago. But Billy, what do you think here? Somebody has to win. Steelers certainly have not had the season that they usually have, and the Saints have been a tad of a disappointment. Somebody has to win, and what do you think?
I think you're right. Somebody has to win this game. I do not recommend watching this game. Honestly, it's going to be ugly.
It's going to remind me of Lions Steelers last year when they had a tie, probably.
I'm tempted to pick a tie, to be honest with you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with Mike Tomlin in this one. I think he stops Andy Dalton in his tracks and protects Kenny Pickett enough. I think the Steelers win this game. It's going to be an ugly game. I'm thinking like 13-7. It's going to be a bad football game. I go for a walk for 3 hours or something. Don't watch this game. But I think the Steelers end up winning this game. Again, ugly score, 13-7.
All right, fair points here in the brute force. Of course, your beloved Pittsburgh Steelers against the New Orleans Saints, a team last year that I famously said, I hope they're never on prime time. And we've seen them, I think, a couple of times this year on prime time, and hopefully not too many more times. But somebody has to win. I mean, the Saints, actually, if they win this game and get some help, I mean, they themselves could be tied for first place. So I guess their season's still more than alive because they're in a really, really bad division. And the Steelers, again, are playing pretty much for, I guess, certainly some pride at this point. But what do you think here? The Saints, really, really small favorites. As pick 'em as a game you're going to get.
Yeah, so first of all, John Gonzalez, I know you really want me to put that upset alert up there because technically it is by the spread. But please, hell no. Are you kidding me? I hope, John Gonzalez, that you pick the Steelers. This is the game I really want you to pick the Steelers.
You find out.
Because the Saints are going to win. All right, I'm going to predict Saints 23, Steelers 13. All right, I think the Saints are actually going to win this game on defense. They're going to get a few turnovers into pick sixes, touchdowns, easy field goals. Okay, because the Steelers stink. I say it every week. They're horrible. Okay, they don't have anything they're doing right. Their defense is not good. Their offense is not good. Their quarterback is inexperienced. Okay, there's nothing that you could like about the Steelers besides their head coach, who unfortunately has to watch this disaster unfold. Okay, because the Steelers are just not a good football team. Okay, the Saints, like you said, Tom Bryce, they're playing for something. Okay, and they actually haven't really played that bad. I know last week wasn't a great game for them, but before that, they were playing solid football. I think they just had a bad week. But against the Steelers, it's like, the old, Detroit Lions. And when you play the Steelers, we're playing the Steelers. Let's go. This is the week for us to get back. All right? That's who the Steelers are. Everybody wants to see the Steelers on their schedule. There ain't no damn steel curtain. There ain't no yellow, whatever the hell those towels are, whatever stupid yellow towels those are. Okay? They are not an intimidating.
Yellow and gold towels. Yep. The yellow and gold.
Terrible towels. They are terrible. They're saying the truth. The Steelers are terrible. Okay, they're not a good football team, and the Saints will go in there and beat their behinds. 23-13.
I'll tell you this much. I know you and Philadelphia have an interesting relationship, but I don't think that you'll be welcome in Pittsburgh anytime soon. That's for sure. I think it's safe to say at this point. But before I pick, let me get to some of the guys. John Gonzalez likes Pittsburgh, and Ron Leonard is kind of funny here. He got the Saints 11, the Steelers 10 off a 2-point conversion. And remember, Brute, there's a method to my madness. Just look at the leaderboard. I'm going with the Steelers for a few reasons. Number one, in Pittsburgh, I'm assuming a little bit of a colder afternoon there. New Orleans, cold weather. Andy Dalton, while he may be experienced there in terms of cold weather, I'm pretty sure his record in Pittsburgh, not too good. Maybe some old memories there. And I kind of think that Pittsburgh kind of finds a way there to win a game. And I'm going to say like 17-10, something like that, probably in that range. I think we're all in agreement. This is definitely going to be an under, and the 40 is only the over-under here. So definitely it tells you this is going to be one of the more lower over-unders here. So let's go to another matchup here, Billy. And speaking of teams we spoke about a couple of minutes ago, the Tennessee Titans against the Denver Broncos. And Broncos would be probably one of the other disappointments in the league this year because everybody thought Russell Wilson, new coach, division, they've loaded up, they've got the defense, they should be back, but really hasn't been much of anything. And Titans I guess, have played a lot better. I mean, 5-3. They had a 5-game winning streak, played pretty well in Kansas City, so you got to be kind of okay with the way things are if you're a Titans fan. But Titans are 3-point favorites. I would have thought a little bit more here, but we are in Nashville. 39 is the over-under, and I would have to think ugly game. I guess the one thing, Billy, that Vegas respects about Denver is that their defense has been really good, just that their offense has done absolutely less than last year. So what do you think?
I know we've been letting Russ cook for a while now, and I think it's clear we need to switch a takeout or something because he's not getting it done. It's been a rough year. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's just, doesn't have what he used to. Maybe Pete Carroll's system's a lot more quarterback friendly than anybody realized. Ultimately, give me Derrick Henry, give me the Titans at home. Ryan Tannehill isn't a great quarterback, but he's found a way to win with Derrick Henry, and Russell Wilson has not found a way to win with Denver. I'm taking the Titans. I think fairly low scoring. I think you're looking at maybe like 24-17, 27-20, something in that range.
All right, fair enough. In the brute force, certainly Denver's defense has played pretty well. I mean, the one thing I will say, which will kind of be a clue to my pick, Denver's defense has played really well. You'd think that if they would have had a little bit from what you would have gotten in the past from Russell Wilson, the record would be reversed. And the Titans, I guess, are kind of where they should be in kind of a very weak AFC South. So what do you think?
Yeah, I got to agree exactly with what Billy said. I do think that, the Titans, even in a loss last week, proved to you why they're not some pushover team, and they're a team that could obviously make the playoffs and give somebody a hard time. I'm not saying that they would win, necessarily, but they are a team to be reckoned with. I think we also learned a lot about their defense last week. I think the Titans actually have a good defense as well. Denver does too, and the offense is the real difference is the man Derrick Henry, who literally just carries human beings for a living. He is just crazy. I mean, you just watch this man run over, lineman after lineman and just, run down the field. And he's so big and so fast. It's just like unhumanly possible to me, but he does it every week. So Derrick Henry gets the job done. I agree with Billy. The score is probably going to be roughly either 24-17 or 27-17. I could see that being the score. A lot of field goals in this game, but with a few Derrick Henry touchdowns. And I like the way Denver played. They played a little bit better in their last game that I saw in London. But that was against the Jaguars. They barely squeaked by. Again, the Titans are better than the Jaguars, and I think the Titans will do their job.
John Gonzalez likes Tennessee. Ron Laird says Titans win. They almost won it for me last week. I'm going with the Denver Broncos here because I do think the Denver defense keeps them automatically in every game, even though, again, coaching decisions, offense is what it is, but something tells me here that their defense probably wins it for them in a very low-scoring game. I'm going to say Denver 17, Tennessee 14, or 20-17, something like that. And I kind of think for whatever reason, even though, again, really not a fan of this Denver team at all, but again, they're in every game, and once in a while you're going to win these games, and I kind of think here that the Broncos find a way, and I guess you could say kind of keep their season alive. And John Gonzalez wants to remind the Brute Force one more time, 24-14 over the Vikings.
I'm telling you, we're going to take an extra point off your record if you get this wrong. I'm telling you right now.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll be back on Sportswire Radio next Friday for sure, and we'll definitely talk about it. I'll save the Giants 1 o'clock game for last, so we'll cover that last because it's the locals. I always like to do the locals last. So let's go to Billy, a game that kind of is interesting for the wrong reasons, and that's, of course, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Indianapolis Colts. The Raiders, another disappointment in the AFC, although not entirely surprised that they are where they are, but the Indianapolis Colts, of course, fired their coach, Frank Reich, which is something we talked about last year on the show, and Jeff Saturday is actually their coach now, who I saw maybe the week prior as an ESPN NFL Live analyst, and yet, of course, former player there, and he's now the head coach, and kind of an intriguing situation there itself, and 4 o'clock game, and it's in Vegas, so I stand corrected on that. Thank you for my eyes for reading the wrong once again. But Raiders are 6-point favorites here. Certainly, Raiders think Vegas themselves thinks nothing of the Colts, and certainly their lack of the way they play, especially the last couple weeks. But Billy, do the Colts maybe win one for the Gipper, or do the Raiders actually, after their own debacle last week, maybe finally win one here? And what do you think? Because another one of these, somebody has to win over two of the more disappointing teams in the AFC.
God, this is a bad game. I don't like this game at all. I will not be watching this game. I can promise you that. I hate both these teams. I expected bigger things from both of them.
Well, the Colts certainly, at least because of the division they were in.
You know what? I'm going to go. I have no confidence in this game, so I'm going to go with the storyline of the Colts getting revenge on Josh McDaniels for snubbing them for the head coaching job a few years ago. The Colts find a way to win this game. And that is the only reason I'm picking this score, because both these teams are terrible, and neither of them deserve to win. So.
Well, somebody's going to have to win the brute force, and Colts are 6-point underdogs. Raiders are 6-point favorites. I guess the only reason that is because of the coaching change. What do you think, though, the brute force?
Yeah, well, I'll say this, by the way. If you guys look and you see those 51 losses I have, I can tell you that both of these teams have contributed to a lot of those wrong picks. So they've pissed me off, especially the Raiders, who I've picked almost every week, and they continue to fail me. So I'm really getting sick and tired of it, okay? But this is the last straw I'll have with them. If they don't get this right, I may not pick them ever again, all right, this season, all right? Because the Raiders better win this game, all right? They better win this game. They're home. They're playing a Colts team who has Sam Ehlinger at quarterback.
No, that's a name that you want to avoid.
Oh, God. Then they have Jonathan Taylor, who's been limping on my fantasy team all year. trying to play this game. Okay, yeah, there you go. Yep, me and Billy both depressed on that one. Okay, he's been limping all year, been killing me in fantasy. Okay, and he's killing the Colts too because he's not healthy. Okay, then you got all different kinds of issues, and then you talked about it, Tom Bryce. As much as I love Jeff Saturday on First Take and on ESPN because I watch that. Sometimes he's a great guy. He's a great Colt. Okay,
Sure.
I want to say this. I'm a coach. Okay, I'm a coach, and you look at the Colts coaching staff, and you see a couple of guys who have been head coaches in the past. You've seen guys who have moved their way up the organization. As much as I like Jeff Saturday, and I don't exactly think he's going to do a bad job, if I'm one of those coaches, I'm livid. I am just pissed because we've been working all year. We've been working, for years to get to become a coach. And this guy who's most experienced as a coach is in high school, gets the job over all of us, basically, and now becomes our boss. As much, again, I like Jeff Saturday. I think he'll do well. But I'm just putting myself in the coach's shoes, Tom Bryce. As a coach on the staff, right? If I'm an assistant, let's just say at a college, and I've been working for years to try to get a head coaching job, and some random dude who coached preschoolers comes and takes my job, all right? That really would make me upset. So I think that with the fact that the Colts are a mess, they won't win. But the Raiders, to be quite honest, will find a way to make this close, and that's why I'm going to take the Colts with the spread, but the Raiders to win.
Well, we'll certainly find out. Let's get to what some of the guys have to say. And Ron Laird says, with Burrow off this week, I'm stuck with David Carr, so who knows? So that's some fair points. Let's go with John Gonzalez. He likes the Colts. I said it last week, which he did.
John Gonzalez, you're really trying to help me, John. I appreciate it.
Indy in a strange game. Brute, you're wrong. Picks will continue unless you listen to the master. I am going with the Raiders just because I'm expecting here Raiders at home, Colts, new coach, new everything. I mean, for what it's worth, I think it'll probably be Raiders, 28, Colts 20, something like that. I mean, one of these games, it wouldn't surprise me if the Colts won, but you have to pick somebody here. So that's what I'm going to go with. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. And Billy, another game where I would have to say one of the teams you definitely expected to be a disappointment. The other, I guess we probably kind of saw coming based after the second half that they had last year. And that was the Arizona Cardinals. And they're on the road here against the Los Angeles Rams. And the Rams pretty much tried as hard as they could, I guess, last week to lose against the Tampa Bay Bucks. And it's what you'd have to call a must-win for both teams to have any chance at the postseason, I would have to think at this point. 4:25 p.m. game, America's game of the week on Fox, I guess. And Rams are 2-point favorites here at home. 40 is the over-under. And what do you think here? Although last year, Billy, if you would have told me 40 is the over-under between these two teams, I would have laughed at you. But that's the state we're in right now. But what do you think between the Rams and Cardinals?
Yeah, seems to be a trend of bad matchups this week, first of all, is what I'm thinking. Especially this afternoon block. But, the Rams probably should have won that game last week. Tom Brady got handed that late call that never should have happened. It's a must-win game for both teams. I know Brad's a big Cliff Kingsbury fan. They got the matching haircuts going on. I don't see Cliff Kingsbury getting a win this week against the Rams. I don't think the Rams are Super Bowl favorites this year, even really contenders, but I do think they'll sneak into that last wild card spot. And, yeah, I'm going to maybe not, actually, because the 49ers, I don't think they're anyway, but that's not important this week. This week, I got the Rams winning at home in a game that I think they're going to hit the over, but barely. I think it'll go like maybe 43-44 total points scored. But yeah, the Rams I think the Rams win this game. I think Kyler Murray throws a back-breaking late interception that ends the game.
The Brute Force, it's a must-win, I would have to imagine, for both teams. Rams Super Bowl champions 3-5, major disappointment. A lot of disappointments in the league this year for sure. I guess maybe the Rams get a pass because they won the Super Bowl last year, so I guess Los Angeles is kind of, I guess, as laid back as they could, but the Cardinals definitely, coach is in trouble there, I think. Quarterback certainly facing some scrutiny there. But, I mean, somebody's got to win. It's a must-win for both teams. What do you think?
Yeah, this to me is the hardest pick of the week, and I'll tell you why. Both quarterbacks are game-time decisions right now. Kyler Murray has a hamstring injury. He's a game-time decision, and so is Matthew Stafford, who has a concussion. So it's one of those things where which injury do you feel is going to impact one of the teams worse than the other? So are both quarterbacks going to be out, or maybe one is going to be out and one is not? Like, we don't know the answer to that right now. But I'm going to make a prognostication, all right, and we'll see if John Gonzalez agrees with me here. But I'm going to say that both quarterbacks actually end up being out of this game. And it's going to come back to two backups, all right? Some Wolford guy for the Rams and Colt McCoy for the Cardinals. And I'm actually going to go with the former Giant, Billy McInerney. I'm going to go with the former Giant and Colt McCoy to pull off this upset alert, because the Rams, as the favorite, okay, and they're home and all that. But I just think Arizona is gonna outscore them with the backups. I think the backups are both gonna play. I think Colt McCoy has proven more in the NFL than this guy Wolford, okay, who hasn't really done anything. And I think that the one thing the Cardinals will do as well is they'll have a little more success with running the football if they have a quarterback that actually can make some throws downfield. I don't have any confidence in Wolford. McCoy, not too much more, but a little more. I'll say a close game. This is going to be a low-scoring game, Tom. I think that's an under. I think it's going to be a backup quarterback battle that ends up being 16-10, something like that.
I think that is very, very fair points, and I'm going with the Rams, and I guess just because they're at home, and I kind of think the Rams kind of win here just to salvage their season. But it'll definitely be, this screams like 17-14 kind of game, like 20-17. It just screams very, very tight game. And I think Ron Laird stole the words out of my mouth. LA Rams win a tight game. Rams, John Gonzalez also wanted to remind me, picking McDaniels is suicide. Yeah, I agree with you, but eventually going back to the Colts and Raiders, somebody has to win that game. So I have to pick somebody. I either pick Jeff Saturday, who is an ESPN analyst, or I pick Josh McDaniels. So that would be just my point in my defense. Low-scoring game, absolutely, and Randy is better than Colt McCoy. He's going to come on here in about 15 minutes to give us about 10 or so minutes on the NHL before we get out of here. So we'll find out what he's got in the tank. But, Billy, let's go to another matchup here. That's a 4:25 p.m. America's Game of the Week, and that is the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers, which is 4:25 because of the name of the Green Bay Packers, not because of the way they've played. But we are in Lambeau, but the Cowboys are 4.5-point favorites on the road. That is the state of the affairs of the Green Bay Packers. But, Billy, what do you think here? Certainly, Cowboys have played very, very well this season. I think, considering with Dak being out as long as he was, and they've done a really, really good job. Mike McCarthy comes back to Green Bay. You'd have to think he's got some motivation here, team as well. And what do you think? Or does maybe Aaron Rodgers kind of find one in him and kind of keep what it's worth the Packers season alive?
Yeah, so this is, it's funny you said this is America's Game based on the name of the Packers. I think it's the best game in the afternoon window, which says more about the afternoon window than it does this game.
True.
Yeah, Cowboys, Packers. The Cowboys have been great this year. They've been outstanding, but the clock's ticking, and it's time for their annual claps to start. And as bad as Packers have been, this feels like the kind of game that, like, every year the Cowboys have that one game that they inexplicably lose, and it starts that downward spiral for them. This feels like that game. Plus, there's the fact that as bad as Packers have been, I don't think Aaron Rodgers likes Mike McCarthy. I think they had a bad relationship when he was the head coach, especially towards the end. And Aaron Rodgers is a guy who lives off of spite. So I think a chance to, stomp on Mike McCarthy a little bit in Green Bay is something he's been waiting for a long time. I think the Packers end up pulling out the win on this one, which I guess is an upset.
Yeah, it would definitely qualify as an upset. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that ultimately you see an upset in this one. The Packers pull out the win, end their 5-game losing streak. I'm not going to say they get the season back on track, but this week I think they get the win.
Fair enough. And before I get to the Brute Force and John Gonzalez and Rod Laird's picks, John Gonzalez says Aaron Rodgers needs to smoke some shrooms and keep drinking the kombucha or kombucha. Is it kombucha, I think? Yeah, that reminds me. I think one of my friends who listens to us, Josh Bailey, is big into kombucha. He was really big into it. I don't know why, but he liked it, but you couldn't catch me dead drinking it. But the Brute Force, I don't think you're drinking kombucha, but I do know that you'll probably be watching from afar the Cowboys and Packers, and very rare that any team is a road team favorite over the home Green Bay Packers. I mean, I can't think of, especially when the weather turns as it is now in November and December, that you see this too often, but that is the case. We've got McCarthy versus Rodgers. You may want to put it to it that way. And do the Packers kind of find a way, I guess, to keep what's left of the season alive, or does McCarthy get one from the team with some motivation, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, no one probably would have predicted this one, but McCarthy beats Rodgers. That's going to be the story here.
Wow. Okay.
McCarthy's going to do it, and I think the Cowboys are going to win pretty easily in this game. And I think I'm confident in that mainly because of the Cowboys' defense. The Cowboys' defense is elite. Okay, it is fantastic. Okay. They have playmakers on defense all over the field between Parsons, Diggs. I mean, I could go down the list. They got a really good defense, and the Rodgers, the Packers.
You might be smoking the shrooms then after saying or thinking of saying
basically the Rodgers because it's the only thing they have on offense. Okay, that was my point. All right, they don't have anything on offense that scares you. You know, Aaron Jones is questionable for this game. He's the only guy who you would be excited to see on their offense. You know, and they got a whole bunch of no names. They got guys who even were playing earlier in the season that are out. Okay, their offense is in shambles. And right now, against a really good defense, I just don't think they're going to put up a lot of points. And I think on the other side of things, the Cowboys have found a running game with Elliott and Pollard. I think that Pollard obviously was really good the last time we saw him against the Bears. And I think that, Dak Prescott, is doing what he needs to do. He's not playing amazing football, but he's doing what the Cowboys need, which is a better upgrade from our good friend who was in earlier in the season, of course. So, I mean, again, Dak Prescott does enough. The defense is the main reason why they win the game. I'll take the Cowboys probably by a score of like 34 to 17, something like that.
All right, let me go to the guys. Cowboys huge. Cowboys will win. This is not close. Brad is actually right for once. The Doomsday Cowboy D, the playmakers, the run game. Cowboys are a juggernaut. I agree with everyone here. I think Dallas wins. I think Green Bay right now is in a free-for-all, and I think that this is really I know we've had some good Dallas teams in the regular season over the past 5 or 6 years, a couple of them. But this team, I have to say, the Brute Force and Billy, I kind of think is a good Dallas football team. And I think that they might actually be real, and they're doing a good job. And I think that it continues. And I think Dallas wins probably 27-14 or 27-17. I just do not have any faith in Green Bay. And I think that they're in a free-for-all, and it's going to be one of those just years for them, unfortunately. But let's go to the Sunday night game and the 49ers and the Chargers, and certainly this should be a very, very interesting game in San Francisco, or Santa Clara, as you might want to call it, Billy. But 49ers, 7-point favorites, 45.5 is the over-under. I kind of think here that the 49ers, I think we all could probably agree, are better than their record because of who they acquired a couple of weeks ago at the trade deadline. I also think it's a team that usually has been a good second-half team. Last year was an example where they just turned on the Jets in the second half and led it into the NFC Championship game. So what do you think here, 49ers, Chargers?
Yeah, I think you're right. The 49ers, obviously Christian McCaffrey was a huge add. Jimmy Garoppolo has been doing what he does. He finds ways to win games. And the Chargers have had some injury issues as usual for them. Justin Herbert's been lagging because of it, which is really hurting my fantasy team. I got the 49ers winning this one at home. Christian McCaffrey, I think Kyle Shanahan has all kinds of ways to get him involved. And, I got the 49ers winning this one. And I think they cover this spread. I think they win this thing. I'm thinking like 30-17, the 49ers win.
All right, makes sense. The Brute Force, before I get to John Gonzalez and Ron Laird, what do you think here? Certainly, 49ers certainly made maybe the biggest move of the trade deadline. And the Chargers, I guess I can't figure them out as usual. They're 5-3. They've played okay. They are pretty much well in the mix of things here in the AFC. But I guess both teams in some ways are kind of in the same spot. But what do you think?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's two different stories here. I think, to your point, Tom, the 49ers are definitely better than their record, and I think the Chargers are worse than their record right now. And Billy, you couldn't see eye to eye, any closer, because I have Justin Herbert in one of my leagues too. So I know the pain, just like Jonathan Taylor. I know the pain of being a Justin Herbert owner right now because he hasn't done very well. Let's just be honest. And some of it's on him, some of it's on coaching, and also some of it, to Billy's point, is on injuries. Keenan Allen's been out. Mike Williams is out. Okay, so they don't have the same weapons on the outside for Herbert to throw to. Eckler's kind of been their one piece on offense that's been holding it down. Okay, but ultimately, offensively, they're not the same team as what we were expecting earlier in the season. We talked about this team being a potential contender with Kansas City and Super Bowl potential. Obviously, they're not there. Their defense is depleted, as we've talked about, with injuries. So with all that being said, the 49ers have a good defense. The 49ers have a great offense, okay? And they're playing, a little bit better of recent. Like Billy said, their record does not indicate, all right, what they are. They're going to be a really good team. I still think they're the best team in the division, even though the record doesn't say so. And it says Seattle is right now. But I think that they're going to win this game. And similar to Billy's score, I think it's exactly just about right. Probably 31-17, right around there is about right.
John Gonzalez likes the Niners. Ron Laird likes the Chargers in an upset. Listen, pick the Niners, but stay away from this game. I completely agree with John Gonzalez because both teams kind of have a narrative that they could win this game for different reasons. I'm going to pick the Chargers just because I'm a little bit behind in the standings pretty much here. Although my gut tells me 49ers are going to win this game. But I'm going to say Herbert makes enough plays. This will be an interesting game. I'm going to say Chargers 27, 49ers 21. But again, I'm with John Gonzalez. I would not pick this game. There's a couple of games this week I would really not want to pick. Saints and Steelers would be one probably that'd be on my mind. Raiders, Colts. I mean, there's a couple of games that I would really say, you know what? I don't know if I want to touch this game with a 10-foot pole, but this is definitely one of them. But I'm behind in the standings, so that's kind of my reason why I made the pick the way I made the pick. But Billy, before we get to the Giants game and bring on Randy Dillon, who's with us, we'll spend a few minutes on the NHL. I want to work at least 5 or 10 minutes in the NHL. Then we'll get to the NBA. But Monday night game, Philadelphia Eagles, our only undefeated team here in the Washington Commanders in Lincoln Financial Field. I'm sure it'll be an interesting Philadelphia crowd because I'm sure they'll have the Phillies' unfortunate loss in the World Series on their mind. But the Eagles do have Super Bowl aspirations, the only undefeated team in the league, and they are naturally big favorites here, 11-point favorites. 44.5 is the over-under. Although the Commanders have played much better the last several weeks. Won 3 of their last 4 and had won 3 before last week where the Vikings had been able to squeak out a win. But what do you think? And do the Eagles continue the perfect season here so far?
Philly fans are obviously probably still upset about losing to the Astros in the World Series, but they'll get some release this week because they'll get the boo Carson Wentz, which is something they're going to love doing. Given how his tenure there ended. Look, the Washington's played decently this year. Carson Wentz does enough to win some games, but going back to Philadelphia, he's not going to sleep at all this week. He's going to have nightmares. He knows the booing he's in for Monday night. He knows that the Eagles can't wait to get their hands on him. He was not liked in that locker room, and there's still some guys there who were there with him.
Oh, yeah.
He did not handle the drafting of Justin Hurts, of Hurts well, Jalen Hurts, sorry. This is going to be a demolition. Not only do the Eagles win, it's an 11-point spread. I hate double-digit spreads. The Eagles easily cover this spread. They're going to win this game like 35-10. They're going to keep rolling undefeated, and Eagles fans are going to have a great 3 hours watching Carson Wentz struggle.
Yeah, you could definitely kind of figure there. Monday night, it's going to be probably the first chilly game there in Philadelphia this season. You get the feeling there that the Bluebirds are going to be ready, and certainly some valid points there. And the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, and obviously Eagles on a special pace right now. And Commanders have played, I guess, slightly better than maybe anybody thought, but I don't think anybody really seriously thinks of them as a playoff contender. And Eagles are on a special run, and does it continue? And what do you think here between these two teams?
So I'm actually going to disagree with Billy McInerney a little bit, and the reason why is I don't think Carson Wentz is playing. That's the reason why. You know, it's been Taylor Heineke the last few weeks. Wentz has been out with a finger injury. He hasn't been cleared to play yet, so I don't think Wentz is going to play. And I think Taylor Heineke has been serviceable. I think that he's been serviceable to the point where the Commanders have looked more respectable under him. I actually think he is the better quarterback than Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, went over the Bears, the Bucks. You certainly could have won against the Vikings last week. I mean, they played a little better.
Oh, listen, I think Heineke is legitimate, a decent quarterback that is better than Carson Wentz. And I think that he will keep the game competitive. As Billy said, I hate these double-digit spreads. They're killing me this year. And I picked the Eagles to double-digit spread against the Houston Texans last week, and they did not cover. So I'm not happy with that. And I just think there's something about a divisional matchup in the NFC East where it's always close. It's always going to be interesting. And I just think for some reason the Commanders will keep this game within a touchdown at the end. Maybe not for most of the game, but at the end, I think maybe they cut it to a touchdown or 8 points, and they'll give themselves a chance, but they won't win. The Eagles will obviously win, but I think the Commanders will hold their fort. I'll say 32-24. That'll be the final score.
Wow, okay. You went a lot more offensive than I would have thought there, but let's see what some of the guys think before we get to the Giants game and then bring on Randy Dillon. Eagles big. John Gonzalez says it's lonely at the top, but keep the faith. Well, certainly. I mean, there's a lot of football, a lot of games to pick, so we'll certainly find that out. He likes the Eagles. The only game that the Eagles can lose is the game in Dallas. Hey, you know what? I'll tell you what, John Gonzalez, right now you might be proven right because I think the Philadelphia Eagles win this game rather comfortably. I think it's going to be 24-10, 24-7. I really don't think much of the Commanders here in this spot. Again, Monday night, probably based on the weather, first cold game there in Philadelphia. Been an unseasonably warm fall so far here in the Northeast. I think this is going to be where it's the cold weather comes into play. Eagles time of possession, Eagles defense. I think Eagles check all the boxes off here. I do think Washington's played like the Brute Force had played pretty decently the last few weeks, but I think they meet their match here. Hard for anybody, I think, to reason how you could pick Washington here in this spot.
Hold on, Tom, I will say, because I actually just looked at it. I know he's not with us today, but he sent me his picks. Joey Bostrom picked the Commanders in this game. So he's got the guts to pick this game.
Well, he's 58-39, so his win. So if you do the math on, if we're going percentage points, he's picking that because mathematically in the standings, he needs to make up ground because John Gonzalez is 81-45. His record's about 600. So Joey Bostrom's doing the math thinking, well, if I pick this game and we know John Gonzalez, I'm telling you, that's why he did that because that's his rationale. So that's for Joey Bostrom to decide. I'll let him figure out in the court of opinion how that works out. And John Gonzalez says, whom will buy the Commanders is the big question. Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos? Well, I mean, Jeff Bezos is with Lauren Sanchez, so I'm going to say Elon Musk, by process of elimination, would have to be the pick because I think Mr. Bezos is going to be spoken for in terms of his money. But hey, Elon Musk bought Twitter, right? So that's going to cost him a pretty penny. So maybe Bezos has more money than Elon Musk. Or how about a wild card, Michael Bloomberg, because he's always buying something. He's always doing something to influence things, right? So that would be another name I threw out there. Or maybe fun one for our sports fans, Steve Ballmer. I mean, he's always buying something. The Brute Force kind of got that one. That's a good wild card. So we'll see. Maybe we'll talk about that another one. But I know Randy Dillon's dying here to come on here. So let's get to the last game of the picks. And that we save that for you, Billy. That is the New York Football Giants and the Houston Texans, the 1-6-1 Texans, who have played, I guess, okay, a little bit better than their record. But Giants here at MetLife, 1 o'clock CBS game. Giants 4.5-point favorites. Would have thought a little bit more. Giants coming off the bye, 40.5 is the over/under. And what do you think? Do the Giants get back on track, or do the Texans pull off an upset?
Yeah, so the Giants coming off an ugly loss to the Seahawks, but this is a team that I think is very well coached. I don't think they're going to be the Giants of old where they lose a game and it spirals, much like how the Jets bounced back and won last week. I think the Giants need it this week. I actually think 4.5 points is a decent spread. The Giants have not won a game by more than a score this year. I think the Giants win this game, but I think you kind of get like that late backdoor cover by the Texans. I think the Giants end up winning like 21-17, where the Texans barely cover that spread. I have faith the Giants win, but I don't think they just don't have that ability to like run away from teams the way that like the Bills do, or the Bills
Eagles this year.
Yeah, they just haven't been able to do that this year. So they'll win, but the Texans will keep it close.
All right, Brute Force, Giants and Texans. Again, the Texans are 1-6-1, but they've been in a number of these games. Thought they played very well Thursday night against the Eagles. Certainly kept it interesting most of the game. But I think Billy kind of summarized the Giants' season. They've been able to win these games. They've found a way. They've been good in the fourth quarter. Defense has made enough plays. Jones has played reasonably turnover-free. Barkley's been back. 4.5-point favorites are the Giants. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think you just proved a lot of my points for why I'm going to take the Giants pretty big in this game. First of all, I won't lie to you guys. I double dipped. I took Daniel Jones and I took the Giants defense this week in fantasy to fill 2 voids. Okay, so I am totally in on the Giants, absolutely beating up the Texans. Okay, oh, stop, John Gonzalez, that's enough. All right, listen, all right. Speaking of teams that'll win by 10 points, the Giants will win by 10 points. I think that Daniel Jones will have his fun running all over the Houston Texans. Okay, I think that Saquon Barkley will have fun running all over the Texans. Okay, and the Texans offense, yeah, they looked okay against the Eagles. But I think a guy, one thing that keeps going under the radar is the job that Wink Martindale has done with the Giants defense, which has been very well prepared for games. And speaking of prepared, they had a whole extra week to prepare for the Texans. So I think they're going to be really prepared, really ready to play this game. And I think that the Giants are going to take this one rather easily. Give me like a 27-14 game. I think the Giants win.
John Gonzalez wants to remind you Steelers over the Saints.
Wrong.
He likes the Giants. Ron Laird, Giants 30-7.
Ooh,
I don't think it'll be 30-7 because I don't know if the Giants can score 30 points, but I think the Giants can score 20, and I think the Texans can score about 10. So that gives me a Giants victory, and it would be hard-pressed for me to pick the Texans at this point because the Texans, I think, to me, are playing for the number 1 pick this year in this year's NFL draft. They scream to me that that's where they're going to be going. So I think the Giants get a win here, and John Gonzalez pretty much says almost the same what I had to say, 23-10. So I think that pretty much wraps up where we are, and we'll certainly figure out next week where we do. And the Brute Force will, I am sure, update the leaderboard, and we'll see if John Gonzalez continues his momentum because he has, correct me if I'm wrong, a 2-game lead over Chris?
1 game lead over Chris.
1 game.
Unfortunately, a 6-game lead over me now.
But Chris, it's 1, and Finkel, it's 4 games, correct?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so Anthony Finkel probably doesn't even know right now he's 4 games behind. John Gonzalez is 4 games behind because knowing Anthony Finkel, he's probably sleeping right now, but that's okay. He'll be with us at some point. He'll watch the show tomorrow. As he always tells me, he catches up. So a shout out, as always, to Anthony J. Finkel of DPH Property Service. Of course, they are doing all great things, and my brother even wears his shirt now because I noticed he has it. So, and John Gonzalez says his lead will be 10 by next week. Maybe we'll find out. You never know, right? I mean, although I think most of us picked kind of the same games, so realistically speaking, I would say math wise, I guess the most John could grow the lead would maybe be by 4 games. Let's say maybe by 4 mathematically. So, but hey, listen, if you're in a 4 game lead or a 5 game lead or even a 1 game lead, you're in a lead, so it doesn't matter. But Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat, you're with us, and I know you had to wait, Randy, but we were picking NFL games. But want to get you in here for a few minutes before I get to the NBA, and I really want to get a few thoughts from you, though, Randy, in the meantime. And I think about the NHL standings this year from an offensive standpoint. McDavid, Draisaitl, we expected. We expected all that. Those numbers are there. But I look at right now, to me, the New Jersey Devils are in first place, and usually we would say the Boston Bruins, we would have usually to be, all right, yeah, we'd expect them to be in first, but considering where we thought they would be in this offseason, I think they have to be even a bigger surprise than the Devils. But what do you think there about those two teams and some other things you've seen so far this week?
St. Thomas, great to be back for another week. Yeah, the Boston Bruins definitely surprised. Me and Justin mentioned the injuries. Marchand was not supposed to be back till later this month. McAvoy not till January, and he's back early. And the Bruins are just steamrolling the league, 12-2, just dominating. The Devils are a bit of surprise, I would say. I thought they'd be
and longest winning streak in over 5 years, I had heard.
Yeah, 6 wins. They swept Western Canada. They're putting up the points. Jesper Bratt is
what 20 points about right now, right? Jesper Bratt's putting around 20
points. He's putting it up there, so definitely strong there. But the Devils, keep an eye. I think both their goalies are hurt now in Blackwood and Vanacek. So are they going to be going a here we go again for them like last year where they were hurt? A team that I would say that really is surprising me with how I would say poorly they've been playing is the St. Louis Blues. They went an 8-game losing streak. They finally beat the San Jose Sharks. A lot of hope for this team with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou getting those big extensions. Bennington thought was going to be playing well, which he had, but they haven't begun the offense, and they're at the bottom of the league. And another team I would say that surprising is the Calgary Flames, 6 in a row after the big move with Huberdeau and Kadri. And
5-6-2 right now.
Yep, they're looking bad. Edmonton, not surprising. They're 500, but Jack Campbell's play, boy, do they need a save in. Another surprising team, the Arizona Coyotes. They're 500 at this point. I don't think anyone had that. They're
I know. Saw yesterday against the Islanders, unfortunately. I mean, they certainly, played very, and they're on a 14-game road trip. I mean, how about that, Randy? They're on a 14-game road trip, and they found ways to be competitive here.
I think the most surprising thing with the Coyotes, they have I think the second or third best power play right now in the league. And they don't have no star talent, no McDavid, no Carlson, no Doughty, no Hedman, none of these Matthews, none of these powerhouse McCarr guys on their lineup. I think Clayton Keller has 15 points, but they don't have anyone else screaming. You think, man, this guy's incredible. So they're doing a great job. And
how about the Kraken, by the way? The Seattle Kraken on a 5-game winning streak right now. Got to mention them.
They're playing good. Martin Jones looked like he found a resurgence in his game after quite a few tough years, everything he's done. And they're playing great. But I want to get Billy's opinion on the Rangers, where the Rangers are about 500, Billy. But Igor Shesterkin, is it something to worry about, or will he find his game? Because right now, a lot of top goalies are not playing well, and he's one of them that's struggling.
Yeah, like you said, the goal scoring has been up this year. I think it's the lowest save percentage we've seen in like 20 years or something in the NHL. So it's been a strange start season in that regard. Shesterkin's still towards the top of the league in goal saved above expected, which factors in shot quality. The big thing I think with Shesterkin is last year he had legitimately one of the best seasons a goalie's ever had in the NHL, and it's just not sustainable at that level year over year. I'm not worried about him. I think he's going to end up closer to the 920 save percentage than the 910 he's sitting at now. I don't know that he'll repeat as the Vezina winner this year with the start he's gotten, but he's going to be up in the higher end of the save percentage by the time the year's over. I'm not worried about that. He showed signs of turning it around against Detroit, and really he's had a couple of rough games, but in general it's been more just I think kind of unrealistic expectations based on the year he had last year more than anything else that have been his undoing.
Do you think though Halak's gonna affected performance because he's been, I would say, decent to the point for the Rangers, but he hasn't been great. I think that was concerned with them bringing him in. Can he take the pressure off to Sirk and give him nights off here and there?
Yeah, it's always been the concern. He hasn't had a great start. He looked better his last game. Had a couple of blusters. He had a start that kind of made you think he's going to retire the way Marty Biron did years ago when he was Henry Lundqvist's backup. He seems to kind of be coming into his own a little bit. I mean, and look, last year, Alexander Georgiev got to an awful start and kind of figured it out halfway through the year. Maybe Halak can do that as well. Certainly, they used Shesterkin in a back-to-back this year, which is a little bit concerning based on – but they don't really do that often with him, so you wonder how much faith they have in Halak. But ultimately, I'm not as confident in Halak as I am in Shesterkin, but the Rangers' goaltending has been good for so long. They have a great goalie coach. It's not my biggest concern with the Rangers right now, the goaltending situation. I think that'll work itself out, given time. Just give Shesterkin some runway, and he'll be okay.
No, I agree there, too. They'll definitely find the way there. Thomas, the one thing I do want to ask, so I'll get your opinion on the Islanders are – they're putting up the wins. Bailey, Nelson.
They didn't put up the win yesterday, Randy. They got shut out by the Coyotes.
Hey, the Capitals are up 2-0 and blew it in with less than 10 minutes to go. So you guys did better than us. But the Islanders, though, is there concern with Matt Barzal? Do you think, or?
I mean, look, right now it's a team that certainly they had a nice little stretch, but it is early. But it's a team that's so far they've played a little bit above expectations offensively. Remains to be seen here with some of the different things here. Obviously, we'll certainly find out. I think goaltending here will be a big key for them. Certainly, I think yesterday's performance left a lot to be desired at home against Arizona, a team on a road trip. So that certainly was not the kind of game that you'd like. You'd like to be able to see. I think the lack of shot attempts was also something that was, a big thing as well, I think, for a concern, but we'll certainly see. Obviously, you've got a road trip coming up. You've got a home standoff between that. So I think ultimately, we'll see what happens. I think as we're getting now into American Thanksgiving, this is where you start paying attention to these games. And I think, with a lot of these different teams, it'll pretty much be the same thing where we see with that. Obviously, Islanders at home tomorrow against Columbus. Then they go on a long road trip. Well, they'll be in Ottawa. They'll be in Nashville and Dallas, two places they never play well. Then, of course, they see their old friend, Mr. Tavares. Then they play some more road games. So we'll certainly see, what happens there. And also want to give Ron Laird a shout-out because he mentions a big matchup in the American Coast Conference there that the Cincinnati Bearcats go to 8-2. They beat East Carolina. Always a big rivalry there between Cincinnati and East Carolina. So certainly looking forward to some college football games coming up here because we're getting close to the end of the regular season. That means we have conference championship games and we get into bowl season. So all good stuff with that. But I want to bring the Brew Force back in here before we get to closing thoughts because the Brew Force, I kind of mentioned it at the top of the show, and John Gonzalez likes to refer to it as Dolan time, and haven't really got a chance to refer to it because we've always done all this baseball stuff and these other stuff. But I want to, just as I spend about 5 or 10 minutes on the NHL, I like to be able to spend 5 or so minutes on the NBA. And Nick certainly looked really pathetic. I'll say pathetic, putting it kindly, Wednesday, but they do get a win against the Pistons for what it's worth. Then we'll see him Sunday in a 12 o'clock game. I can never get up for those 12 o'clock games, the Brew Force. Maybe you'll be up, but state of the Knicks and anything else you might want to share when it comes to your favorite topic on Sportswire?
Really, my favorite topic? Is that what you just said?
Well,
Really?
baseball's over, so I mean, I gotta transition into the NBA. I gotta work in a little bit because eventually,
I know you
can't
have.
do Rob Maraska Mets memories forever.
Oh, I know you have to, especially for the ratings on the show. I know we got.
People want to. I gotta be honest. Rob Maraska contest, I love it, but nobody other than the tweets cares about it. If I talk Dolan, if I talk Knicks, I know I'm getting something on Instagram about it. I know guys like Schenkel and Gonzalez. They want to hear it. So
Brad, even
that's
I
what the
want
people want to hear.
your takes on Dolan are good. But it should be
No.
like, Tom, you'll appreciate that when we say Dolan time, it's like when Vader came out. He's like, it's time. Brad Weiss, it's Dolan time.
Yeah, you know what? I certainly, if the Brute Force can do a moonsault off the top rope and can certainly move as big as Vader did, I'll certainly say we might get even more followers on Sportswire. And God rest his soul, the late Leon White, the mastodon, the baby bull, as Vince McMahon used to passionately refer to him as.
Yeah, so to get to Dolan time here. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, everyone wants me to go crazy once again about beating the Detroit Pistons. All right, let me remind you about how Detroit teams are doing right now. You got the Tigers, who stink. You got the Pistons, who lost.
And the Red Wings I watched yesterday in the bar, which was also next to the Islander game, the Rangers had 5 goals in the second period, which I was waiting for Billy to kind of mention there. 3 goals, I'm sorry. 3 goals.
Third period.
Okay.
Third period.
But Detroit stinks. All right, the only thing good about Detroit is that John Gonzalez is a super fan. That's just about it. Okay, and there's nothing else good about any Detroit team or Detroit sports. Okay, if you lose to the New York Knicks twice in a matter of 2 months, okay, that is an embarrassment, and that's what the Detroit Pistons have done. Okay, now to get to the New York Knicks, because everybody wants to. Of course, Tom Bryce at the top of the show. Oh, this team is 6-6. They're 500. They're doing just enough. They're great. They're fine. You know what? Let's dissect this and let's break this down. Tom Bryce, do you know who their wins are against? Detroit twice. They beat Detroit twice. They beat the Orlando Magic.
Well, I know we're at the bottom of the NBA this year.
They beat
Embarrassing.
the Charlotte Hornets in overtime with 2 of their best players not even playing in the game.
Yeah.
They barely beat the Philadelphia 76ers without Harden and Embiid, for God's sake. They barely did it, okay? They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves, okay? They haven't beaten anyone that's really that good, okay? And they're squeaking by some of these teams. So what have they done? Well, they played the Brooklyn Nets the other day, Tom Bryce, and they got absolutely annihilated.
Well, I guess the excuse could be they were motivated because they were playing for a new coach in Jacques Vaughn. Well, technically, you could say sort of a prior coach because he coached them famously during the bubble. So, I mean, if that's for what that's worth.
You look at all the teams that they've played that are respectable. You got the Nets. They played the Celtics last weekend. They let up a record like 27 threes against the Celtics, who just absolutely killed. They scored 133 points against Tom Thibodeau's defense, in which Tom Thibodeau is supposed to be a defensive mind, and they let up 133 damn points on 27 made threes, which no other team has let up in Celtics history to any team. So that's just pathetic, okay? Then you go down the list. I mean, they've done nothing to prove us, okay? When the big game comes and the lights shine bright, right, in Madison Square Garden against good teams, Julius Randle does nothing. You got our big money man, all right, in Jalen Brunson. Big game comes against the Celtics. What does he do? Nothing. I mean, you just go down the list. So, yeah, they play well against the Detroit Pistons. They want a round of applause? Okay. They play well against Detroit. All right. But against teams that are actually respectable, that are playoff teams, that are teams that want to do something this season, they haven't looked good against any of them. Okay. And that's who the New York Knicks are. The word that we use all the time on this show, Tom Bryce, is purgatory. That is where they are.
I think Stephen A. Smith used the line before Knicks Nets that they're kind of almost between like 8 and 12 this year. I think that's what he said about the Knicks.
That's their like their ceiling, Tom Bryce. Like that's like the highest.
I think he said 8th was the ceiling. I think.
Yeah, but the real spot where it is 10th. That's really.
But yeah, exactly.
And that's why. And this is the problem because I said this for now a couple seasons since they put in the play-in tournament. Okay. Is this what we're really doing? We're going every year to make the 10 seed and make the play-in. All right, we made the play-in. All right, and then then we're going to get eliminated. That's what we play for. That's what James Dolan does. He's Mr. Mediocre himself. All right, he's just horrible in every aspect. And this team is at best mediocre to average, and that simply does not cut it in New York City. That does not cut it. And the New York Knicks just continue to think it's okay. And that's why Knicks fans like me, who don't even want to be Knicks fans anymore, for God's sake, but I have to be for my loyalty,
Well, you could be a Long Island Nets fan.
Yeah, that's different. I work for the Long Island Nets. In fact, I did this today, and I met 2 of their players in person. So, I listen. The Long Island Nets are more exciting than the New York Knicks. At least they give us something, right, to be excited about. Where the Knicks, they're just satisfied with being average or below average. So it just disgusts me that I have to continue to come on this show and talk about it. And the Knicks do absolutely nothing. They have none of my passion about winning, and it disgusts me.
You have more passion than certainly people I've known that have run for office most recently. I don't even want to mention their names because I don't even want to be no longer affiliated with them, and that's only because they were a recent employer. But Ron Laird says, tell us what you really think. Yeah, I think the proof was you pretty much did, right? I mean, anything else you wanted to add? Anything else that you're missing?
I mean, it's just depressing being a New York Knicks fan. If you want me to add that to it, it's just depressing. All right, it just stinks because even when your team is not doing that bad, it's like you can't even be excited because you know.
I mean, look. On the bright side, the season's not over right now.
No, you know what, Tom? You want me to give you a bright side? On the bright side, we're better than the Los Angeles Lakers. Woohoo! That's what we should.
Better than the Philadelphia 70.
All right.
Hey, better than the Philadelphia 76ers right now. Better than the Minnesota Timberwolves right now. 2 teams that everybody said were going to be at the top of the standings.
Yeah, but the Philadelphia 76ers have had injuries, guys out. We know they're better than what their record is.
Agreed.
The Knicks are 6-6, and we all know what their record is. Okay, that's the best they're going to get to. They're not going to go much further. They're just going to sink at some point. Just wait. It's like we talk about with the Cowboys, right? Not this season, but in the past, where it's just an accident waiting to happen. Right? They're good. They're going to kind of go up and down 500, and then at some point they're going to take the deep dive and fall off, and then they're going to be trash, which is really what they are. They're trash. They're just somewhat of an average team that's going nowhere and is just simply satisfied with being just an average team that makes the play-in tournament. Play in, not even the playoffs. Play in.
Well, at least you're playing an extra game. We know in baseball the Phillies, quote unquote, played into the postseason and went to the 6th game of the World Series. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see if somebody eventually from the play-in tournament goes deep into the postseason. But before we get to closing thoughts, I did, Randy, want to ask you one question. I'd be remiss because it is involving pro wrestling. And what's your thoughts about Saraya's return to the ring? We're going to see her against one of my favorites, Dr. Britt Baker. And wanted to, before we get out of here tonight, actually ask you your thoughts on that, because I know you know wrestling like I do and was curious about what you thought on that.
I'm actually excited for Saraya. It's been a long time coming. I was a big fan of her when she was in NXT, was in WWE. She did a lot of great work as Paige, and I'm excited for her. My only concern with her returning to the ring is we've seen in AEW. It's a very reckless style of wrestling. A lot of people have been getting hurt in that roster. Saraya is one of those people. She's like Bryan Danielson. One wrong injury can
I think
put her
it's
right
worse
back in the
because
show.
she's had 2 times, not once, but twice, the serious injury. And on top of that, she's so young still.
Exactly. I think definitely Britt Baker is one of the more cleaner wrestlers. I wish, though, they would build it up because if she beats Britt Baker, okay, what happens to Britt Baker next? Or if Britt Baker wins, okay, what happens to Saraya next?
Well, I think Britt Baker is like their Charlotte Flair. She's pretty much like untouchable, and she's pretty much like their elite wrestler on the women's end.
But I wish they would build up these feuds more, Tom Bryce, where it doesn't happen right away. Remember last year at All Out, Ruby Soho debuted as she was the #1 contender, pretty much got pushed to the curb right after. And
Adam Cole, another example. Samoa Joe comes in. Listen, even I think Punk's kind of debut kind of never really put him on the right footing with the fan base. I mean, so I think and I've said this 1,000,000 times with you, that's their problem is they bring people in and, because you have a gluttony of them, it's tough to build them up. But I guess they feel like maybe they can sell a few extra tickets. It is a matchup that I think a lot of people would want to see. I wouldn't have went about it with some of the way she made her comments during the interview about, her injury and everything she's accomplished and what she's done. And, I thought that wasn't really one of my more favorite parts of it. But, I think she's a phenomenal talent.
Exactly. But if you want to talk about selling tickets, what about Jake Paul? Logan Paul, we got to give a round of applause for him, what he did on Saturday. That was a great performance.
I think that was a performance, and watching the match, I think nobody had expectations of it, and he put on, correct me if I'm wrong, it must have been about a 23-minute match, about 23, 24-minute match, something like that. Watching that match and the spots he pulled off for a guy that had 2 matches, I mean, there are guys that have 2,000 matches in there and couldn't have done what he did. I mean, in a main event, no less, against the guy that, oh, by the way, has been the champion for 2 years.
And he made us believe at some point in those matches, like, he was going to win. So that what you call storytelling in a match in the finest twist and turn.
So what do you think? But where do you think we go from here? Now he says he's got a torn meniscus and all these torn ACL, but to pull off what he did in that match, I mean, I talk with a lot of wrestlers. I mean, I watch a lot of wrestling matches because we cover that here before we get to closing thoughts here. I mean, do you think he really has a torn meniscus or what?
I think he does. I think some of them.
I mean, you've wrestled. You've gone out there. You took in the bumps. I know it wasn't to that level. I mean, could he have pulled off some of that spots with those kind of injuries?
I think he can, because even look at his earlier matches with Rey Mysterio and The Miz. He's very agile. He likes to move around. I think some of the jumps, definitely he could have torn the meniscus at some point. But his future is bright in WWE. Like, we're going to see more of him. I would expect maybe at one point we see Logan and Jake Paul in a tag team match.
Well, I think Jake Paul, I mean, that's going to be, I'm assuming, eventually down the pike. I still think he's going about this boxing career, and I guess, whatever you want to take it. But certainly, no question, the athleticism that Logan Paul brought to the table and what he was able to do. I think even if you weren't a Logan Paul fan, I don't know if you became a fan of him, but after some of the spots he pulled, those outside spots, what he did off the top rope, or even just kind of the offense he put in there inside the ring, he definitely hung with Roman Reigns a lot more than anyone. I think even Roman Reigns himself anticipated. So, I mean, I think that was, to me, kind of the thing that Crown Jewels, to me, stood out most. I mean,
how anticipated was this? We've seen Crown Jewels. Like, let's not forget the Goldberg and Undertaker Crown Jewels.
Oh my God! But don't ever mention Goldberg and Undertaker again. Do me a favor. Don't bring up that match again. Don't.
Or Cain Velasquez with Brock Lesnar a few years ago. Like, this was something else. Like, for them to, with all the hype in the media. Like, if you want to sell tickets, like we talk about.
Well, dude's got what, 25 million followers on Instagram?
Yep, they sold tickets for AEW. We talked about how it's very hard. Like, they put on these great matches, bring these people, but they can't get people in the seats
because they suffer. It's almost like in music. It's almost like those that. How can I put it? It's like almost they're like about musicianship, but they're not about like showmen. It's almost kind of like how you have like a band like a Motley Crue versus a band like, let's say, like a Rush. Rush has got phenomenal musicianship, Canadian band, and you've got Motley Crue, who could not play their instruments as well as Rush, obviously, but people want to go buy tickets to them. So it's a little bit of a tougher sell. So I think AEW's got that fan base. They've got that niche, certainly. Next week, I think we'll talk about some of the card, a couple of things, MJF and Moxley for sure. But, Logan Paul, I hope to see him back there in the ring. I think we will because he signed a contract. And, oh, by the way, Jake Paul, we'll see what happens with him for sure. But certainly we ran the gauntlet here tonight on Sportswire Radio. We spoke NHL for a few minutes. We spoke NBA for a few minutes. We did MLB. We did a Rob Maraska contest for I forgot what it even was, but certainly on Twitter, we'll certainly play that clip. Yeah, I actually don't even remember what it was, like some Topps Houston Astros baseball card. Then we did our NFL picks where we picked every game. You can kind of compare how we did against how you may do. Certainly some people like Joey Bostrom and Anthony Finkel and Chris Pizzea, I know, gave their picks. Justin Gianelli will be back with us next week. He did his picks, and we'll certainly do a lot more NHL and some of the other sports as we go on. But let's get to closing thoughts as we've pitched at midnight here on Sportswire Radio here in the East Coast time, and as we go toward the end of the show. So, Billy, welcome back. Hope to have you back here sooner than the last time we had you here. Want to give you the floor. Want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything that you want to plug, share, say. And floor is yours, my friend, and I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks for a great show, everyone. Great to be back. Definitely plan on being back more regular than I have been recently. Closing thoughts, you can catch me on Twitter at WMCINE. And closing thoughts, I don't really have a meeting. I guess my closing thought is I think you're going to see some movement with DeGrom this week. That's my closing thought. I think
Really? You think that
I think you're some movement with the contract can maybe not signed, but approaching a contract with the Mets this week.
I kind of feel like DeGrom are going to wait, though. I just, for whatever reason, I don't see him going right away. I just don't. I mean, if it was Kershaw and the Dodgers, because we heard Kershaw Dodgers closing in a 1-year deal, I'd say, yeah, all right, that would make sense. But I feel like DeGrom's going to wait. I just don't. I mean, this is it for him. This could be his last big contract. I feel like he waits. So you think there's movement. All right. All right, fair enough. I mean, certainly we'll find out. I mean,
not like us contracts being signed, but momentum. I think like this time next week we'll see like reports like momentum is getting done towards the contract.
I don't know. Baseball offseason with these big guys in the brute force will attest to it. I mean, these guys wait longer and longer. We saw Machado and Harper a couple years back. I mean, my God, they waited forever and ever and ever. I mean, it's like it used to be where you basically these guys would sign like the first chance they got. I mean, so we're not even near winter meetings yet. So all right, I mean, all right, Bill, that's certainly a bold prediction. We'll see if it holds up. Good stuff from you as always. Hope to have you back, champ. We'll see if the Rangers and the Giants can continue some momentum. Rangers, basically, I think was it their most goals they scored last night for the season. I think was their most
easily.
Goals. So we'll see if that continues. Panarin as well, and some of the guys. So we'll see if they continue to stay on track and repeat last year's strong season. Randy, always good to have you, my friend. Love mixing up a little bit of wrestling, do some NHL, almost try to be the Baskin Robbins of sports. We cover everything, and that's how we bring you in. So want to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, anything else, hockey fan chat, please do. And the floor is yours, my friend.
St. Thomas, you can catch me on Twitter at Randy Dillon, Dillon, DHILLON. You can catch us on our Facebook page, The Hockey Fan Chat. For the Hockey Fan Chat, we were hoping to record an episode with an Ottawa Senators fan. Didn't really work out.
That would be an interesting one, considering their start to the season.
Going to try to connect with the person against even record. If not, I have maybe possibly record an episode with a Canucks fan or another Capitals fan on their season. But one person I would love to record an episode with right now would be Jen Sheffro, because the Penguins, they are best. So, and I know she has.
I was thinking of you because I was listening, because we have a certain way to catch different things, and the brute force will appreciate this because it'll tie into the NFL. And I was listening to a local Pittsburgh sports show, and they were talking about what was a more bigger disappointment this year, the Penguins or the Steelers. And the Steelers wound up winning it, but it was by like 51-49, almost like one of these elections you're seeing right now going on. It was like literally like 51-49. The Steelers and the Penguins, and especially the Penguins right now, they're hearing it right now. And I think Mike Sullivan is hearing it a little bit right now.
I don't know if Mike Sullivan's here. I think Ron Hextall and Brian Burke are hearing it. This team's old.
Well, you listen to that Pittsburgh sports show, they were talking about Sullivan hearing it a little bit.
But they gave him a 3-year extension, and they're in a little bit of a mess there in Pittsburgh because they're old and slow, and it's showing in their game right now.
They did win a couple of games in a row this week, so maybe that saves them for a little bit. But I think they're in trouble. That division, as always, I mean, the Flyers have come back to earth a little bit. Certainly Carolina's right where they need to be. Islanders, I don't know what to make of them. We expect the Rangers, obviously, to be there, and certainly the New Jersey Devils. I mean, on the longest winning streak, I mean, we got to be talking about what now? I think 7 or 8 years now at least.
It's been a while for them.
It's been a long time coming that you see the New Jersey Devils 11-3, and our friend Neil Villapiano. I mean, he's pretty much all over it.
They're happy right now.
Well, they haven't had much to cheer about in the last decade, so now they're getting all of it out. But we'll see. We'll certainly keep our foot on that as well, and we'll certainly see if our old friend Jen Sheffro, who we've had on here on Sportswire Radio, you and her record a segment. But all great stuff, Randy. Thank you as always. We'll mix in some wrestling talk with you for a few minutes next week. And Billy, certainly good to have you as well. But we certainly, I can't say as always, saved the best for last, but we definitely saved the biggest for last. And the brute force Brad Weiss, who I know will have some announcements, some closing thoughts, get us ready for Plainview JFK Hawks tryouts, level up thoughts, obviously some big wins here for you guys over the past week and much more. So I turn it over to you. You know the drill. The floor is yours, and fire away the brute force.
Yeah, so thank you guys for another great Friday Night Live here on the Sports Report. Thank you to Rob Morosco, Randy, Billy, of course. Another great show. Excited to have Billy back as well. Missed you for sure. Randy, as always, it's a pleasure. So I want to make sure we talk again about it. So another great week of the show. So I want to thank you guys once again. Social media, as you can always find me, is Bradley Weiss on Instagram. Bradley Weiss on Facebook, I apologize. On Twitter at BradWeiss20. And then searching on Instagram, I have 2 pages now. My coaching page is now at Coach Brad Weiss. All right, and my personal page is at BWeiss20. So as Tom Bryce just alluded to, I'm really excited right now because our Plainview Obet page, JFK Hawks, season begins on Monday. And that page will get very busy with Coach Brad Weiss as I take you guys kind of on a season tour of what we're going to do with Plainview. So I'm really excited for that. I use that page for other platforms as well. And as Tom alluded to last weekend, I was a happy man because my 9th grade level up team won the 2022 Premier Fall Knockout Tournament, going 3-0 and winning the final game by a single 1 point. So it was quite the crazy one. As you can hear, my voice is still not fully recovered from that. But we have another tournament this week. Unfortunately, before I got here tonight, one of my teams lost by 2 in a close game. So it was a tough night for me coaching. But we got a lot more games this week. I had to coach 10 games in 2 days. So I'm looking forward to all the fun and then starting on Monday with the season. Speaking of seasons that didn't get off to a good start, Tom Bryce, unfortunately, our SJLI Golden Eagles. They lost their first game at home to Pratt, 66-63. As I
very, very, very slow and kind of. They never had a rhythm. Our Golden Eagles in that game, unfortunately, kind of to a slow start and bounced back toward the end of the first half, and then kind of the same thing in the second half, and then they bounced right back, and there was like a really, really questionable call. This is where in college basketball at our level, I don't know if you were watching the game, that if replay was certainly in effect, you would have said to yourself, well, was that the right call? And then it led to a technical foul on us, and then I was kind of never really were able to overcome it. We're down 9 points. I think got within 3 or 4 at that point. And then unfortunately, we never got any further than that.
Well, first of all, I'll say this because obviously he's a great friend of ours. The fact that Matt Hurd, of all people, got a technical.
I didn't want to say it. That's why I was waiting for you to say it.
No, I'll say it. The fact that he got a technical, I'm shocked. It must have been an absolutely horrible call. Because he's not the type of guy.
I don't even know how it went on us. I mean, I was watching it. And I was kind of like waiting for like some confirmation, but that's the problem at this level. I mean, that's the problem, unfortunately.
But listen, obviously a tough start. I saw Spencer Malloy got off to a good start for them.
Yep.
And they had a few other guys play well, but
the Hurt brothers played well.
Yeah, but obviously the big concern is with who I think is their best player, Alec Tabata. Obviously, did not play the first game. We'll see if he makes an appearance this week. They have 2 very important home games, Tom Bryce, against Baruch and York this week.
York, who, by the way, it's now Gist and Gist coaching as head coach and assistant coach there. We have our friend Justin Gist, of course, who we knew from St. Joe's, Brooklyn, the legendary player there. And, of course, Jamel Gist, the legendary Brooklyn College Bulldog, who we've had on the show many times, he was the York associate coach. Now he's the head coach.
Yeah, so the Gist name goes at York. So they got a good, solid team this year, too. So
very good team. I would say they're going to be at the top of the CUNY standings for sure.
Yeah, so, with their coaching. And
Baruch is coached by Alessi. I want to point that out. So Baruch, and it was always going to be – and we beat Baruch last year in Baruch. So that's going to be on the minds of Coach Alessi is going to make sure those guys know that.
Absolutely. So it'll be a fun week to see how our Golden Eagles bounce back. But, one game's one game. So they'll learn from it. Hopefully they have a few good days of practice and they come back even stronger. So I'm excited to see that. Speaking of teams that I also hope come back stronger, that's the Long Island Nets. They've had a tough start to their season. Their home opener is this Sunday over at the Nassau Coliseum. So we are looking forward to seeing that. And today we had a Veterans Day clinic, which we had a lot of kids in attendance. So I want to give a shout out to the Long Island Nets for a great clinic, as well as Level Up. We had a Veterans Day clinic as well, that went really well. We had over 90 kids at our clinic. So I'm really excited to see that the community was coming out and had a great time with our clinics today. So really excited for that future as well. So with the Long Island Nets, of course, you can follow them at Long Island Nets on all social media platforms. And speaking of the G League, last thing I want to say before I get to my final closing thought, Tom Bryce, our good friend who I'm hoping to have on the show one day, Ryan Terrell, made his debut on the G League court. Of course, he is on Detroit's G League team.
You got to take back your Detroit knocking then.
Well, maybe there's one good team in Detroit. Maybe the G League team in Detroit can actually be something successful. So, you know what? Actually, John Gonzalez, me and you, since you're Detroit's #1 fan, maybe this could be the team we unite on besides the Lions. So, Ryan Terrell made his debut, and it was all over ESPN and everything. So, yep. I'm really excited to see what he can do in the G League and hopefully make his dreams come true, be the first Orthodox Jewish player to play in the NBA. So I'm looking forward to seeing that journey. I want to congratulate Ryan Terrell, not only being on the G League team, but also making his debut, and hopefully he has a great season for them. So shout out to him. But last but not least, I'll finish you guys with one last thing to say, all right, because I wanted to make sure I got it in. I finished my whole lecture on the New York Knicks by saying that they're a 500 team. They're all right. Well, guess what? The free-for-all is coming. Why, Tom Bryce? Because after their game against Oklahoma City this Sunday,
I know where it's going.
On a 5-game West Coast trip over to Randy Dillon's side of the country. They're going to go and play some of the tough teams like the Denver Nuggets, like the Phoenix Suns, like the Golden State Warriors. Okay, they're going to play the Utah Jazz, who actually have one of the best records in the NBA.
They're 10-3 right now. Who would have guessed that?
One of the biggest surprises. So they got to play all these games on the West Coast. And we all know damn right that the Lakers aren't on that schedule. Okay, some of the good teams are on the schedule, and that means the New York Knicks can return to New York by the time we start talking next week, Tom Bryce, at a record of 6-12. So we'll see what happens and if that completely changes the way we talk next week. So, John Gonzalez, you already missed Dolan time. We're done for tonight. So thank you guys for coming on the show. Thank you, everybody who supports the show as well. Looking forward to another great one next week.
I'll say this very quickly about the Knicks and the road trip. Even when the Knicks were good in the past, when the Knicks would go on the West Coast, those trips were never that good. So when you went to places like Denver, you went to places like Phoenix or even Portland in the past, those places are always tough places to play for a number of different reasons. Denver, the elevation, the time difference, all those different things. So those are going to definitely be very, very tough places to play. And John Gonzalez says 6-12, not bad. Well, that's a win percentage of, if I'm not mistaken.
John Gonzalez, what are you talking about? You go 6-12, like you're pretty much saying time to fold it in.
Well, even Randy got that, but we'll certainly see. But do want to mention one more thing on our Golden Eagles. If you'd like to follow the men's basketball team, I would highly encourage that you follow the team because we always do a lot of great work with the program. Many of the guys on the team are friends of ours, so we always like to make sure we support our friends here on Sportswire Radio. And, of course, you can follow the team at SJLI_M. B Ball. That's SJLI_M B Ball. I also want to give a congratulations to our Five-Town Sound men's soccer team who came away with a huge win today on the road in the postseason, and they wound up coming back. They were down 2-0 with about 18 minutes left, and they wound up winning 3-2 over #1 Brandywine. What a huge win. Penn State Brandywine. That was really, really an epic performance, and I want to give a shout-out to the team and, of course, Coach Facina. And we're going to bring on Coach Facina and some of the guys after they're done with the postseason tournament, so we certainly look forward to having them on. Always love everything that Five Towns does for us. Of course, we'll be covering the men's basketball team here in the coming weeks, so I want to make sure that we acknowledge them as well, so you can certainly hear the sound loud and proud here, all the great things that the athletics program does. So please make sure that you follow them as well. So we certainly are very, very happy that the team made the postseason. They made the postseason as an at-large in the USCAA tournament. So certainly being in Pool A, I want to acknowledge Stephen Pagoida, who made some big saves, Angel Chavez, who always comes through, Andre Hickling, Juan Lopez, Sebastian Gomez. So certainly Coach Facina and the boys made sure they took care of business. One team here in New York knows how to find a way to win in the postseason. We know that our boys are going to take care of business. FTC Men's Soccer on Instagram. Please make sure that you follow them as well. Also want to shout out the John Jay College men's basketball team. Guys are off to a slow start, but certainly we know they'll get it back together. And also here, want to mention, because John Gonzalez pointed out, John, thank you for your service. Happy Veterans Day. So I want to make sure everybody gets acknowledged here for Veterans Day. I think about all the people that I know that have served. I think about the likes of Russell Gallo, a good friend of mine for many, many years out in Brooklyn, who's in the National Guard. I think he's 20 plus years in the National Guard. So I want to thank Russell Gallo as well for his support, for what he does for our country. I'm sure he's doing some important fact mission as we speak. So I want to thank him for his service. John Gonzalez as well. Love you guys. That includes you, Brad Semper Fi. So always that Semper Fi means for our Marines, Marine Corps, everybody else. I could definitely think of a couple of different people as well that have served our country, and everybody that has served our country, and everybody else who served in places like Canada as well in North America. Want to thank you, and certainly God bless anybody that's out there fighting abroad. Also, anybody that's out there on behalf of Ukraine or anybody else that's stationed across the world defending our freedoms, defending our liberties. I want to make sure that they are acknowledged. So I want to thank everybody that has served our country. You certainly all deserve it, and God bless America. Also, John says, Randy, get me some shrooms. Okay, well, it is, I guess, a little bit still time for that. Maybe, maybe not. Damn, I drank the kombucha. Miss Dolan time. Certainly, my friend Josh Bailey might be able to give you some of those. Another one of my friends, Manny Alejandro, could, but hey, that's here nor there. But we're on Sportswire Radio, and we spoke all the latest happenings here in the world of sports with Billy McInerney, formerly of Elite Sports, Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat. You can catch Randy on sportnarium.com/play with us. We play his podcast when we hear it. And, of course, the legendary Brute Force Brad Weiss, who I want to point out one more thing before we get out of here tonight. Jesse Winter of Level Up. I believe that's going to be coming up here this week. So looking forward to speaking with Jesse. We'll speak some basketball, his career, his journey, your work with Level Up. So looking forward to that. Now that that's on the schedule, it's on the docket. So everybody can follow Level Up Long Island for all the great things that the programs do. Of course, Kelly Dempsey's been involved in it. Of course, I know that Billy Heenan's been involved in it in the past, and certainly Matt Hurd and a whole list of people that know about Level Up. Level Up _LI. Make sure you follow them. We'll be speaking with Jesse Winter and the Brute Force. We'll do that here at some point this week. I think we're looking at maybe in the afternoon. But stay tuned to more details for that. But if you're on sportnarium.com/player, in about 10 minutes, you'll go to your regularly scheduled program, which is a sit-down Marks Marathon. I'll be back here tomorrow night live with Craven Rage, the Universal Wisconsinite Grand Slam champion, also JDT, the new interstate champion here of Wrestling Championship Entertainment. I'll also be back Monday with Supersonic Sammy Blue of Nonstop Action Wrestling. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening here on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you also to John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group, Ron Laird, Joey Bostrom, Anthony Finkel of DPH Property Maintenance Service. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the warm weather if you're out there. If you're Randy, enjoy the weather as well. Thank you. We'll be back here on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire